Phoenix Nights. Chapter 5206. The waiter quickly came down and came to Zichen's side, bowing. He had never seen such a generous customer before. The most generous customer he had ever seen only gave him a little light of law. Zichen asked, "Tell me about this Pure Land." "I'm very curious," the waiter said. "Sir, you've asked the right person. If you ask anyone else, I don't think anyone can explain the Pure Land." The waiter smiled confidently and said, "The Pure Land is a place for everyone to take refuge. But for those outside the wasteland, they all think that they can survive here. In fact, it's not like that. During the day, the Pure Land is full of vitality. But at night, when the months of demons appear, it's very dangerous to stay in the Pure Land." The waiter glanced at the customer and found that he was very calm. He didn't keep him in suspense and continued, "The months of demons will devour everyone's power. It's even more dangerous than the wasteland. So, in this place, without the light of law, it's difficult to move." Zichen said, "Is it okay to stay here at night?" The waiter nodded and said, "As long as you stay in a room supported by spirit gathering, you don't have to worry." Speaking of this, the waiter said proudly, "Sir, you have good taste. In the Pure Land, there are small spirit gathering and large spirit gathering. Our inn is supported by large spirit gathering. At night, not only will we not lose power, but we will also gain some power." The so-called large and small spirit gathering was naturally the formation to gather spiritual power. Zichen had mastered this long ago. It seemed that the biggest danger in the Pure Land was at night. This was not much different from the Lawbreaker realm. The difference was that in the Lawbreaker realm, there was a place to shelter from the wind and rain. But not here. At night, power would be lost faster. Zichen was a little curious about the months of demons. Because in the wasteland, you couldn't see Xingchun or the moon at night. The only light was the light of law. Or the light of ancestral beast soul. If it was the former, it was an opportunity. If it was the latter, it was dangerous. After learning about the Pure Land's biggest danger, Zichen asked about other things. The tip of the light of law was obviously very effective. The waiter told him everything he knew. The other party told him that those who could do business in the Pure Land all had powerful backup plans. Taking this in as an example, the boss was at the 5th level of the Spirit Spell Realm, and at the same time, he was related to Lord Luo. Lord Weiluo was the brother-in-law of the Master of the Pure Land. "What realm is the Master of the Pure Land?" "It's a powerful law destroyer," Shower said solemnly. "He is also the only spell destroyer in the Pure Land." Zichen nodded. Little Fool glanced at Zichen and felt somewhat apologetic for earning a law of light just like that. He lowered his voice and said, "Sir, I think you're not an ordinary person. I've heard a rumor and would like to share it with you." Zichen nodded slightly. "I've heard that every master of the Pure Land can borrow the power of the Pure Land to display powerful battle strength. They are said to be invincible." Zichen looked at the waiter. The other party said, "This is what I've heard. As for whether it's true or not, I don't know. After all, we can't see a big shot like the Master of the Pure Land." Zichen smiled and took out another law of light to give to the other party. Just this rumor alone was worth this. The waiter was very excited. He didn't expect the guest to be so generous, and thanked him repeatedly. Zichen sat there and continued to wait. Seeing this, the waiter poured a pot of bamboo tea for Zichen. This was a gift. Zichen smiled and thanked him. An hour later, he finished drinking the tea and went upstairs under the waiter's lead. When he entered the room, Xiao Zhu had already finished washing and was sitting there. Her long hair draped down like a black waterfall. Hearing the movement, she turned around. A clean but somewhat childish face appeared in front of Zichen. Zichen nodded and said, "Not bad. Next, it would be even better to get 2 sets of decent clothes." "Thank you." "You're welcome. Anyway, we've agreed that you'll sleep on the floor." Zichen walked towards the bedroom. Suddenly, he turned his head and looked at the wooden basin on the table. "What's that?" Xiao Zhu said excitedly. "It's water. I deliberately left it behind." Otherwise it would be too wasteful. Zichen asked. Why did you leave it behind? Drink it. Zichen was speechless. The tea will be delivered later. If you want to drink it, just drink more. These, you can deal with them as you see fit. Zichen thought for a moment, but he still didn't say that he would throw it away. This was because he wasn't sure if there was such water in other places as well. In any case, there was no water in the wasteland. Zichen lay on the bed. The spiritual power here was indeed stronger than outside, but it was extremely limited. What should he do next? Suddenly a scream came from outside. Zichen hurriedly walked out. He saw Xiao Zhu sitting on the ground holding her head. What's wrong? Zichen asked. I can't go in from here, Xiao Zhu said, feeling wrong. Hearing her words, Zichen was angry and amused. If you go in from here, you'll reach the next floor. Go inside and get a blanket. You can sleep here. But if I don't go into the ground, I won't be able to sleep. Slowly get used to it. Zichen lay on the bed again. Now, not only did he have to consider himself, but he also had to consider the girl beside him. Once he left, how would she survive here? He couldn't possibly bring her along wherever he went. Xiao Zhu lay on the ground with the blanket covering her body. It was very comfortable, but she couldn't fall asleep. Agitation, excitement, hesitation, panic. All kinds of emotions intertwined. After an unknown amount of time, she finally fell into a deep sleep. Zichen didn't sleep. He stood by the window. The evil moon that the waiter mentioned was red. The moonlight shone down, bringing with it coldness. He could clearly feel the existence of the array, isolating the coldness of the moonlight. The next day, the sky was bright. The sunlight illuminated the pure land and fell on the body. Xiao Zhu slept very late, but woke up very early. She opened the window and looked outside. She was very excited. So this was the pure land. This was indeed heaven. Everything was beautiful. Zichen hadn't thought about where to go next, so he gave her a few more days of accommodation. During the day, he brought Xiao Zhu around the Pure Land. At the same time, he told her about the dangers in the Pure Land and reminded her not to come out at night. When Xiao Zhu heard this, her face turned pale. It turned out that she couldn't keep eating air here. Previously, she was very excited, but she immediately became depressed. According to last night's standards, she could only stay in the Pure Land for a short 10 days. Now, she finally understood old Yao's words. It was just that this place was much better than the wasteland. She didn't want to leave. At night, Xiao Zhu continued to sleep on the floor. After dawn, she went out alone. Like a curious baby, she walked in the Pure Land. Zichen also went out. He wanted to take a look at the depths of the Pure Land. It was said that the Master of the Pure Land was in the deepest part of the Pure Land. Only the Master of the Pure Land could enter and leave there. When the sun was about to disappear, Zichen walked back. Xiao Zhu also came back. Walking into the room, she looked at Zichen and said, I've made up my mind. I want to stay here. Zichen looked at her in surprise. I don't want to go back to the wasteland. I want to stay in the Pure Land. I want to be independent. Xiao Zhu said sincerely. Thank you for bringing me to the Pure Land. Xiao Zhu has no way to repay you, so this is the only way. Chapter 5207. Zichen frowned and looked at Xiao Zhu in front of him. What did you do today? She was fine during the day, but when she came back, she seemed to have a stroke. Xiao Zhu stood there naked. It was obvious that she was uncomfortable, but she did not put on her clothes. I took a look around today. The light of law can be exchanged for 10 points of light. Living here requires 2 points of light of law per day. In other cheaper places, you only need 1 point of light of law per night. Xiao Zhu said. Back then, old Zhao said that there is only one way for a woman to go here. So, I will use my body to exchange for the light of law. I heard that the first time is more precious. I am willing to use it to thank you. When Xiao Zhu said this, her expression was very calm, without any ripples. Zichen said, "Put on your clothes first." Xiao Zhu shook her head. "You saved me. This is my way of thanking you. Anyway, after today, I won't be worth anything. I'll become cheap." Zichen said helplessly. "Actually, there are many ways for you to survive." Xiao Zhu continued to shake her head. I asked. "This is the only way for a woman to survive here." Seeing that Zichen still wanted to say something, Xiao Zhu immediately said, "Since I am in the Pure Land, I will not go out. The wasteland is too harsh. I want to stay here. For this, I am willing to pay any price." Zichen saw Xiao Zhu's determination. Actually, for the sake of survival, there was nothing wrong with staying here. However, Zichen could not accept Xiao Zhu's choice. Zichen even blamed himself. Because it was his appearance that changed Xiao Zhu's fate and gave her this idea. "This is nothing. I didn't know what my mother was doing in the past, but now I know," Xiao Zhu said. "Whether it is the wasteland or the Pure Land, this is the only way for a woman to survive." Zichen thought for a while and said, "Have you thought about what if you can't survive like this?" Xiao Zhu lowered her head and looked at her underdeveloped body. "I know that compared to them, I have no advantage, but I still want to try," Zichen said. "How about this? Find a place to stay for a night, and see if you can adapt." Xiao Zhu was still standing there. "Put on your clothes. I'm not interested in the current you." Little Bamboo bit her lips and said, "But I can't give you those lights of law. I need them to survive." Zichen said, "You don't have to give it to me. Let's go. I'll take you somewhere." Xiao Zhu put on her clothes again and followed Zichen out the door. Zichen found the waiter and asked him where the cheapest place to stay was. The waiter didn't understand and thought that Zichen didn't want to stay. But he still told him. 1 ray of light of law can be exchanged for 10 points of light of law. That place only requires 1 point of light of law, but the environment is extremely bad." Zichen thanked him and left with Xiao Zhu. Seeing that Zichen had no intention of checking out, the waiter was confused. The two of them followed the waiter's directions and walked towards another street. This street was a perfect example of the word cheap. The streets were narrow and dirty. As the two of them arrived, they attracted a lot of attention. There were quite a few women who were throwing flirtatious glances at Zichen. In order to attract Zichen's attention, they were all purposely twisting their bodies. There was an inn in front of them. The two of them walked in. The shopkeeper glanced at the two of them and said, "Single room, 5 points a night, 1 point for each room." Zichen said, "2 rooms for each room." He couldn't just leave Xiao Zhu here alone. He looked at Xiao Zhu next to him. Xiao Zhu immediately took out a ray of light of law. The shopkeeper's eyes flashed with surprise. He turned around and took out 7 rays of light from behind him and placed them on the table in front of him. "It should be 8," Xiao Zhu said. "1 ray of light of law can only be exchanged for 9 points here." The shopkeeper glanced at Xiao Zhu. "Are you staying? If not, then scram!" Xiao Zhu put away the 7 rays of light of law. The shopkeeper glanced at her chest and a light flashed in his eyes. Zichen said, "Give me the light of law, I'll keep it safe for you." Xiao Zhu looked at Zichen. Zichen said, "If you insist tomorrow, then I won't stop you." Xiao Zhu nodded and then gave all the light of law on her to Zichen. Zichen put it in his arms. The shopkeeper's gaze also moved and landed on Zichen. The only thing that satisfied Zichen was that men and women didn't live together. After entering the room, Zichen saw a long bed. At this moment, there were already more than 10 people living in it. The room was filled with a pungent smell. As Zichen walked in, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. It was obvious that Zichen's dressing was incompatible with the environment here. Zichen walked to the corner and sat on the bed. Soon, a few more people walked in. Their gazes landed on Zichen from time to time. In fact, the others were also looking at Zichen. Because he was too unconventional. Zichen sat there with his eyes closed and said, "I advise you all not to provoke me. I'm in a bad mood now." They thought that the immortal spell world was a sacred place. After all, many number one people's lifelong pursuit was to come here. But when they really arrived, it was too disappointing. Immediately, there was laughter from all around. Who would be in a good mood after coming here? The people who lived here would not have a tomorrow. What's wrong? Are you down and out? One of them laughed and said, Why don't you have some fun with us? Yeah, have some fun with us. I see that your skin is soft and tender. You must be very clean. Someone walked towards Zichen. Although he was joking, his eyes were obviously cold. During this time, his eyes were fixed on Zichen's chest. All of Xiao Shu's light of law was placed there. Zichen opened his eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes. In the next moment, the other party was sent flying. The others who were still laughing were shocked at this moment. They looked at Zichen in shock. They did not even see the other party make a move, but one of them was sent flying. Someone hit me! Someone hit me! The person who was sent flying stood up and shouted loudly. Zichen said coldly, I'll give you all one night to prepare. Tomorrow morning, I need your shopkeeper to give me an explanation. The person stopped shouting and looked at Zichen. Zichen said, If you don't, then don't keep this shop. Zichen closed his eyes again. Believe it or not, it's up to you. The few people who came in later hurriedly left. When the shopkeeper heard what the other party said, he could not help but frown. Could it be that this is a tough one? The person who was sent flying said, Anyway, it's very strange. I didn't feel anything and was sent flying. Chapter 5208. Zichen sat there. After the previous scene, no one else dared to come over. Obviously, he was a capable person. In the Pure Land, ability represented strength. Moreover, he dared to say such words to the inn's people. Obviously, he was confident. The sky was already dark. At this time, no one dared to go out. Therefore, Luo San's arrival showed that he was extraordinary. He laughed loudly on purpose so that the people inside could hear him clearly. Which guy dares to behave atrociously in my place? Luo San swaggered in, and the innkeeper immediately whispered in his ear. Oh? You talk big. I'll go take a look. Luo San walked into the room and frowned. Damn it, what's that smell? The person who was sent flying by Zichen immediately pointed at Zichen in the corner. Sir, it's him. Luo San looked at Zichen and shouted. You're the one who doesn't know what's good for him? The others curled up in fear. Zichen looked at Luo San. Is this the inn's reply? Oh, you talk big. Luo San smiled. Well, come out and fight with me. I can't do it here. After saying that, Luo San left. Then, he walked out of the inn. It was night now. Daring to stand under the evil moon was a proof of strength. In this Pure Land, there was an unwritten rule. As long as one dared to stand under the evil moon to fight, the chance of winning would increase by half. Zichen walked out of the room. The commotion here was huge. Many people had already walked out of the room. There were men and women. Among them was Xiao Shu. She looked at Zichen with worry on her face. Zichen did not look at Xiao Shu or the others. He did not even look at the innkeeper. Amidst the exclamations, he also walked out. It was the first time he stood under the evil moon. The evil moon contained a strange magical power that was forcibly extracting the strength of his body. The speed of the loss of strength was indeed faster than in the wasteland. However, it was still within a controllable range. Luo San saw this scene and his face could not help but change. Daring to stand here was enough to prove that he was a tough one. The expression of the shopkeeper standing at the entrance also changed. Things seemed to be a little out of his expectations. Brat, tell me your name. Luo San, don't kill nameless people. Luo San stared coldly at Zichen. If you want to fight, then fight. What's with all the nonsense? Zichen's figure flickered and disappeared. Luo San's expression changed greatly. The other party had disappeared from his perception. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Luo San. Zichen pressed his palm on Luo San's face and exerted force. Boom! Luo San fell backwards. The earth trembled as a shockwave spread out in all directions. The entire street began to shake, and the nearby buildings also began to shake. The back of Luo San's head hit the ground first, creating a deep hole in the ground. Luo San laid in the deep hole, his body twitching non-stop. When she went out, she saw two people standing in front of her. One was Luo San, who was beaten up last night. The other was someone she had never seen before. Their gazes were fierce. She was slightly worried about Zichen. At the same time, she regretted her rashness. Instead of staying in the inn, she came here to suffer. This place was cheap, but there was not even water to drink, let alone bathe. Zichen looked at the two people in front of him and said, "One night has passed. This is your last chance." That person glanced at Luo San and smiled faintly. "San, it is as you said. This person is indeed arrogant." Luo San shouted at Zichen. "Are you blind? Can't you see that Lord Sijie is here?" Zichen looked at him. "What do you want?" Sijie said. "It's simple. You beat someone up. Obviously, it is impossible for you to leave just like that. Take out 500 light of Tao and this matter will be settled." At this moment, the shopkeeper at the door said, "Lord, the two of them are together." The shopkeeper pointed at Xiao Zhu. Sijie glanced at Xiao Zhu and then sized her up. He said, "Although she is a little young, it is still rare to see her. Her eyes are so clear and pure. She must be a virgin. How about this? Let her accompany me for a few more days and this matter will be settled." Zichen frowned. He did not expect the shopkeeper to be so insatiable. Luo San shouted, "What are you waiting for? Lord is giving you face, so you should take it. That bitch, why aren't you coming over?" Xiao Shu walked forward. "I am willing to accompany you for a few days. Can you let him go? Take out 500 light of Tao and this matter can be discussed." Sijie laughed. "Otherwise, even if I play with you until you are broken, there is no discussion. Stand there and don't move," Zichen suddenly said. Xiao Zhu stopped and turned to look at Zichen. Zichen said, "Actually, if you want to survive, there are many ways. The way you chose is the worst." "What way is there?" Xiao Zhu's expression was bitter. "Everyone is like this. Now I will show you." With that, Zichen disappeared again. When he reappeared, he was in front of Sijie. "Such speed!" Sijie's expression changed and he took a step back. Boom! Chapter 5209 Sijie, 5th Level Spirit Technique. In the Pure Land, he was definitely a tyrant. The reason why the other party could come this time was because the shopkeeper took out 500 Tao Law Light to settle this matter. Otherwise, why would he, with such a noble status, come to this kind of place? But he never thought that such a powerhouse would actually be defeated in one move. The same outcome as Luo San. Even worse, he fainted instantly. Beside him, Luo San was almost scared silly. He thought that Lord Sijie was enough to deal with him, but he did not expect, when did such a powerhouse come to this Pure Land? Exclamations came from all around, everyone was shocked. The shopkeeper was almost paralyzed with fear. Even the famous Sijie was defeated in one move. Obviously, he kicked an iron plate this time. Zichen walked forward and searched Sijie's body, then found a cloth bag. After opening it, he saw 500 Tao Law Light. He turned his head to look at Luo San beside him. "Where did these come from?" Luo San pointed at the shopkeeper. "He gave it to us, saying to let us deal with Lord." Zichen turned back and looked at the pale-faced shopkeeper. "For just a few dozen Tao Law Light, is it worth it?" "Lord, this is a misunderstanding." The shopkeeper was scared silly and directly knelt on the ground. Not to mention whether he could find a stronger powerhouse, just the cost was too great. 500 Tao Law Light was the limit of power he could mobilize. This was still under the situation where he had a special relationship with the boss. Zichen put away these Daola light, then looked at Luo San beside him. How much is his life worth? Luo San was stunned, not knowing and not daring to answer this question. When you think about it, come find me. Zichen grabbed Sijie's foot and walked into the distance. After walking a few steps, he turned back to look at the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper had already completely collapsed on the ground. Zichen smiled faintly. Since you have rules to follow, then use your rules. As his voice fell, Zichen stomped his feet. Boom! A shockwave landed on the inn in front of them. This inn that was opened in a narrow alley collapsed with a bang. Immediately, there were screams. The surrounding smoke began to surge violently. Luo San was completely scared out of his wits. Collapsing an inn with a single step, what kind of power did this require? One had to know that the inn wasn't actually that big of a deal. The only thing that could stabilize everything was the array within the inn. It was also the most expensive item. Zichen, who was preparing to leave, suddenly turned his head to look at the inn. Light flickered in the collapsed area, forming a strange formation. It really is a spirit-gathering array. Zichen immediately saw through it. However, it was different from the spirit-gathering formation he had encountered in the Martial Heaven continent. To be more precise, this was not called a spirit-gathering array, but a minor-gathering array. It was just that the technique was too crude. Zichen had obtained the inheritance of the Tao of Divine Runes from the immortal spell world. It was more or less the same as the formation here. It was clear at a glance. Zichen dragged Sijia away. Lil Bamboo immediately followed behind him. At that moment, she was extremely shocked. She was increasingly convinced that Zichen came from the upper realm. It's over! It's all over now! The innkeeper wished he could slap his own mouths. For a few dozen Tao of light, they had fallen to such a state. This was what it meant to lose big for small gains. Now, not only did they lose 500 Tao of light, even the inn had collapsed. Moreover, this matter was clearly not over yet. After Zichen left, Luo San looked at the innkeeper. It's all your fault! Zichen dragged the unconscious Sijie and walked in this filthy place. Everywhere he passed, he attracted many sidelong glances. When someone recognized Sijie, they were even more shocked. They knew that something big was about to happen. Zichen dragged Sijie back to the inn. At the entrance, he casually threw Sijie aside as if he was throwing trash. Sijie's body was emitting a foul stench. It was obvious that he could not bring him into the inn. Many people had already gathered around. The people here were more knowledgeable and immediately recognized Sijie. Sir? The waiter heard the commotion and walked out. When he saw this scene, his expression changed and he immediately said, Sir, what are you? He immediately changed his words. Dealing with some matters. Help me get a glass of water. Zichen walked into the inn and sat down on the first floor. Xiao Zhu came to Zichen's side and also sat down. She lowered her head and did not say a word. Zichen glanced at her and said, Tell me how you really feel. Xiao Zhu did not open her mouth. Tears flowed down directly. Last night, when she just entered the inn, her clothes were stripped by those women. If not for Zichen establishing his power at the end, her ending would probably be even worse. She had clearly overestimated herself. If she left Zichen, she might not even survive a day. The reason why Zichen attracted this trouble was because of that small bag of Tao of light. Zichen said, Actually, you can be like me and use your fists to live. It's better than using your body, right? Xiao Shu said, Let's not talk about whether I have the talent or not. Right now, I can't even do the basic survival. How can I use my fists? Zichen smiled and said, I can lend it to you. Xiao Zhu looked at Zichen. Zichen continued, But there's one point that I have to make clear. You have to write an IOU. How much of my Tao of light you used, you have to return it to me in the future. Furthermore, it has to be with interest. Xiaoer stood not far away the whole time. He was very nervous in his heart. That person was Sijie, a 5th-level spirit technique, an absolute big shot. But today, he was dragged back like a dead dog. He heard the two people's conversation. Then, he looked at that girl, his eyes filled with envy. Such a good thing could not be found even if one held a lantern. Wasn't this generous lord a little too nice? He originally thought that there was something between the two, or that the lord had some special fetish. Now, it seemed that he was thinking too much. This lord was purely kind-hearted. This kind of person was practically extinct in this pure land. The news of Sijieb being beaten spread very quickly. Hence, the upper echelons of the pure land gathered together to discuss this matter. Preposterous, simply preposterous, a thin man said angrily. How can we let an outsider bully us? This matter, regardless of whether you can swallow it or not, I, Jia Lei, can't swallow it. Beside him, a person said indifferently. Of course you can't swallow it. He smashed your in, not someone else's. Besides, you didn't control your subordinates and provoked an existence that you shouldn't have provoked. Ka, what do you mean? Jia Lei stared coldly at the person who spoke. Nothing. I just feel that you should go and apologize to him. After all, from the news I heard, he tolerated everything. It was your people who were aggressive. Kars said. So you were wrong. Isn't it good to go and apologize to him? Your mother's fart. Don't think that you can do whatever you want with Lord Bo Luo protecting you. What qualifications does an outsider have to make me apologize? Jia Lei was furious. Kars said. Is that so? Then go and get back at him. He's staying at Hayden's Inn. By the way, I advise you to hurry up. If you're late, Sijia's head will be chopped off. Jia Lei snorted coldly and then looked at the silent man next to him. Hayden, what do you think? He's staying at my inn and hasn't destroyed anything. I can't drive him away. Hayden looked at Caleb and said, I think that you are indeed unreasonable in this matter. Go and apologize. You want me to apologize to an outsider? Good, very good. It seems that you want to make me unable to raise my head in the Okon Pure Land. Jia Lei said coldly. Isn't he just an outsider? See how I deal with him. Chapter 52:10. Sijia was still lying on the ground, still unconscious. In fact, he woke up once in the middle, but after looking at the situation, he felt that it was safer to faint. Caleb came. He brought a group of people and surrounded the place. The others scattered far away, watching from afar. In the Okon Pure Land, such a thing had not happened for a long time. Zichen stopped talking with Xiao Zhu and looked at Caleb, who came in. Caleb said, How should I address you? Zichen. Caleb pointed behind him. I brought him here. The shopkeeper came to the door and knelt on the ground. Sir, please spare my life. I was wrong. I was really wrong. The shopkeeper knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. If he knew last night that the matter would be so serious, he would not dare to act recklessly. Now, he did not even have the chance to make up for it. Caleb waved his hand with a cold expression. Puff! A person next to him stepped forward and slashed the shopkeeper's neck with one hand. With a flash of light, the shopkeeper's head was separated from his body. Immediately, screams came from the surroundings. Zichen glanced at the corpse and his eyes flashed with surprise. It did not disappear. It seemed that the rules of the wasteland were useless here. Was Caleb apologizing? In the crowd, some people's faces changed. The always proud Caleb was willing to apologize, which was rare. Caleb said coldly, He was wrong, he had to admit it, so he died. Zichen's expression was calm as he pointed at the unconscious Sijia. What about him? How much is his life worth? In Zichen's eyes, this matter was obviously not over. Caleb's eyes flashed with anger. I haven't finished speaking. Zichen looked at Caleb and motioned him to speak first. He was wrong, he's dead, and the matter is over. Now, it's time to talk about my inn. You destroyed it, what do you want to say? Caleb's eyes flashed with coldness. If you don't give me an explanation today, don't even think about taking a step out of the Okon Pure Land. Zichen looked at him. Are you done? Yes. Zichen asked. What about his life? Zichen was still pointing at Sijie. Garrett said angrily. I'm talking to you about an inn. What are you talking about? Zichen said faintly. I'm talking to you about a being at the 5th level of the spirit spell realm. You want to die? Gale's eyes were filled with killing intent. Zichen could only look at Sijie. You're just pretending to be dead. He doesn't care about your life or death. You tell him yourself. Otherwise, I'll really be dead. Sijie, who was lying on the ground, immediately got up and said, I'll give you 1,000 light of the Tao. Zichen looked at Sijie calmly. Is this your fate? Sijie's face changed. He gritted his teeth and said, 2,000. This number caused the surrounding people to be incomparably shocked, because it was too great. Zichen extended his hand, which made Sijie even more embarrassed. Because he didn't. He quickly turned his head and looked at the crowd. The crowd immediately retreated. Damn it! Sijie's face was filled with anger. Were these people worried that he couldn't afford it? Why don't we let him go back and get it? If he doesn't come, I'll pay for him? A voice rang out as another person walked over. When the waiter saw this, he immediately called out to the boss. Obviously, it was the owner of this inn, Hayden, who was also in the 5th degree realm. Zichen waved his hand at Sijie. Sijie cupped his fists towards Hayden gratefully, and then hurriedly left. When he left, he stared fiercely at the surrounding crowd. Gale looked coldly at Zichen and said, Now, it's time to talk about the matter between us. I need an explanation for this matter. Zichen glanced at Gale. What do I have to say to you? He originally deserved to die. I didn't want to make a move because I didn't want to dirty my hands. Zichen's gaze swept across the people Gale had brought. How would they dare to look at Zichen? They hurriedly avoided him. That inn of yours has been open for so many years and I don't know how many people it has harmed. Speaking of this, I only regret that I came too late. If I had come earlier and demolished the inn, there would probably be many people who would benefit from it. Zichen pointed at those people outside. Actually, I don't feel that their responsibility is the greatest. If it wasn't for your protection, I reckon that they wouldn't have done such a thing. So, the one who deserves to die the most is actually you. You'd better not give me a second chance because what I want to do the most now is to get rid of you. Presumptuous. Gale flew into a rage. Who do you think you are? You dare to kill me? Zichen ignored Gale's howl. The current him had no reason to kill anyone. Hayden took a look at Gale and said, Gale, let's just forget about this matter. Forget about it? On what basis? Garrett roared angrily. He forced my men to their deaths and destroyed my inn. How can I let this matter rest? If I forget about it, where should I put my face? Don't forget, this is Ocon's pure land. Lord Ocon has helped me before. Zichen ignored Gale's howl. He sat down and poured himself a cup of tea. He also poured a cup for Xiao Shu, who was sitting opposite him. As for Gale's act of taking advantage of the situation, he pretended not to hear it. He looked at Xiao Zhu. Have you thought about it? Xiao Shu nodded. Yes, I have. I will follow you and owe you a debt first. Zichen smiled when he heard this. This was obviously the right choice. I am talking to you. Did you hear me? Being ignored by Zichen made Gale furious. You said that Mayan should have disappeared, right? Haha, then let me tell you. All the inns on the surrounding street are mine. That's right, the shopkeeper was ordered by me. Because that is my territory, all the rules are set by me. Then he pointed at Xiao Zhu. You went there because of this bitch, right? I, Gale, will announce that if this bitch dares to come to my inn again, not only will my men take away all her light of law, they will also rape her before killing her. Zichen furrowed his brows as a cold look appeared on his face. What, you don't believe me? Let me tell you. All these years, we have done many such things. What is a death here? Gale's expression was disdainful. Zichen said, Indeed, it's not a big deal if someone dies here. Haha, you can see it too? Since I have the strength, I naturally have something to rely on. Gale pointed at his crotch. Get over here and crawl through. Then this matter will be over. Otherwise, you know the consequences. But sometimes, the death of a person is extremely significant. Zichen stood up. In the next moment, there was a breeze. When the breeze dissipated, Zichen had already disappeared from his original spot. Another roar suddenly sounded from outside the inn. On the ground, there was a deep pit. Gale fell to the ground in the pit. He stared at Zichen. Kid, if you have the ability, then kill me. Do you dare? Come on. All right. Zichen nodded. Then he lifted his foot and stomped down. The madness in Gale's eyes turned into fear when Zichen's foot landed. Infinite fear. He did not expect that this hothead would actually dare to make a move. Can't you tell that I am just bluffing you? I have a powerful force behind me. When the foot landed, a powerful energy shock wave instantly extinguished Gale's life. He asked to kill? Zichen fulfilled his wish. Chapter 52:11. Everyone was dumbfounded. They didn't expect Zichen to kill someone just like that. A 5th-level spirit spell was trampled to death just like that. In this pure land, Caleb had a great reputation and great influence. Just as he said, all the inns in the outer area belonged to him. Different from Hayden's place, his inn's environment wasn't good and the prices were very cheap. Other than normal operations, he would often get some side income. If there was a suitable opportunity, he would also force women into prostitution. This could also explain why the shopkeeper was so bold. After a 3rd-level spirit spell was defeated in one move, he still dared to not apologize and even dared to mobilize resources to fight to the death with Zichen. Now they were all dead. The others around didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Hayden was even more shocked. He didn't react at all before, or else he would have stopped them. Sijia came back with the resources. He didn't dare not to come back. He just happened to see the arrogant Gale turn into a corpse. His heart twitched fiercely as he hurriedly went forward and said, Sir, the light of law is here. Sijia held a large cloth bag. After Zichen opened it, a dazzling light appeared in his vision. He didn't count them one by one, but the numbers shouldn't be bad. Thanks. Zichen smiled faintly. Next time there's such a good thing, remember to find me. If you have friends, you can introduce them to me. Don't look for others. It's cheap here. I won't. I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. I definitely won't do it next time. Sijia waved his hand. Then he said, Sir, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Zichen waved his hand. Sijia felt as if he was pardoned and turned to leave. As for the dead Gale, he didn't look at him again. A dead person wasn't worth paying attention to. Moreover, Sijia didn't care about his life or death. The others also dispersed. The excitement was over, but the shock in everyone's heart didn't dissipate for a long time. Hayden walked over with a pot of wine and 3 cups in his left hand. After sitting down, he poured 3 cups of wine. Zichen's eyes flashed with surprise. He didn't expect there to be such things in the Pure Land. He picked up the wine cup and drank a cup. Then he smacked his lips. To be honest, the taste was really not that good. After all, Zichen had brewed wine before, so he had the skills to do so. An idea suddenly popped up in his mind. Why don't I make wine here to survive? He wondered what the others would think when the news spread. He was the strongest person in the myriad spirit realm, but after arriving in the immortal spell world, he changed his career path to brewing wine. My name is Hayden. You were too impulsive when you killed Gal. Hayden raised his glass and said, He has some connections here. Zichen smiled and said, You're so lawless. You must have more than just some connections, right? Looking at Zichen talking cheerfully and wittily, Hayden's heart skipped a beat. To be able to say such words, it was clear that he had expected this. Just how confident was he? At that moment, Lil Bamboo was looking at the cup of wine curiously. She wanted to drink it but did not dare to. Seeing this, Zichen said, Try it. Xiao Zhu nodded, picked up the cup, and drank it in one gulp. He immediately stuck out his long tongue, as if he was not used to it. Zichen smiled. How does it taste? Xiao Zhu retracted her tongue and said, It's very sweet. Zichen was speechless. How could this be called very sweet? I don't think you're from the Okon Pure Land. Where are you from? Haydn looked at Zichen. Very far away. Zichen poured himself a cup of wine and drank it in one gulp. It was still tasteless. It had nothing to do with sweetness. So, he took out a pot of wine from his spirit ring and poured himself a cup. Wow, it smells so good! Xiao Zhu exclaimed. The fragrance of the wine spread, and some people in the distance looked over. Haydn's eyes flashed. This kind of magic trick was very impressive in this place. Try this. Zichen poured a cup for Haydn. After drinking it, Haydn smiled and said, Good wine. Just this mouthful is worth a few bottles of mine. Zichen said, I don't have much, so I can't give it to you. This was just a polite sentence. In fact, Zichen had a lot of wine, but the two were not familiar with each other. It's good. Just try it. Haydn did not force him. After that, the two of them casually chatted about some things. Haydn intended to investigate Zichen's background. However, after Zichen understood what kind of world this was, he spoke with reservations. After drinking Zichen's pot of wine, Haydn stood up. This matter will definitely alarm others. From the looks of it, it's not over yet. Zichen nodded, indicating that he understood. After Haydn left, Zichen brought Xiao Zhu upstairs. Looking at this place again, Xiao Zhu felt very familiar. Even looking at the ground made her feel very comfortable. Zichen said, Next, you should work hard to cultivate. How do I cultivate? Xiao Zhu tilted her head and looked at Zichen. Zichen said, Use it to cultivate. Zichen handed the bag of light of law to Xiao Zhu. Remember, there are 2,000 strands. How do I cultivate? Xiao Zhu took the heavy bag of light of law and asked again. Zichen said, Next, you'll refine it as usual until your body can't finish refining it. That's it. Xiao Zhu was stunned. This is cultivation? Cultivation has always been this simple. Zichen had specifically asked about this when he was chatting with Haydn earlier. It seemed no different from the 10,000 spirit realm. Xiao Zhu was a little skeptical, but she still decided to try Zichen's method. To her, light of law was never a cultivation energy. It was her life. However, there were 2,000 strands of energy now, so Xiao Zhu began to refine them. The waiter knocked on the door and served a pot of tea. Next, Zichen drank the tea while watching Xiao Zhu refine the light of law. Actually, he also wanted to know how many strands of light of law Xiao Zhu had to refine to fill her body. And to break through, what kind of realm did she need? One strand after another. Xiao Zhu absorbed the energy here just like how she usually absorbed the light of law. After refining 30 strands of energy, there were some energy fluctuations around Xiao Zhu's body, but it was extremely weak. After 50 strands, the aura fluctuation was slightly stronger. After 100 strands, there were finally some changes. But through Zichen's perception, it wasn't even at the first level of spirit cultivation. Xiao Zhu continued to refine, and 200 strands of energy disappeared. Xiao Zhu's aura was close to the first level of spirit cultivation. After refining another 100 strands of energy, Xiao Zhu's body emitted a heavy aura. Xiao Zhu took out another strand of energy, and continued to refine. Suddenly, she stopped and looked at Zichen. I'm already full. I can't eat anymore. Zichen nodded as a trace of shock flashed across his eyes. Just 300 strands of light of law and Xiao Zhu had reached the first level of spirit cultivation. In the 10,000 spirit realm, it would take countless years to reach this level. It seemed that this place was indeed blessed by the heavens. Chapter 52:13. Just 300 law lights were enough to nurture a first-level spirit spell cultivator. This was too worth it for Zichen. Zichen wasn't sure if everyone here was like that. Xiao Zhu looked at her hands and the light flowing between her palms. She couldn't believe her eyes. This is power? I have power too. She was excited and in disbelief. I can kill the ancestor beast too? Zichen thought about it and said, It's true that you have power, but it's not realistic to kill the ancestor beast. According to the estimation of the ancestor beast he killed last time, it was around the 3rd or 4th level of spirit spell. Xiao Zhu was startled. When can I kill the ancestor beast? Zichen said. That depends on how much you've improved. You are only at the 1st level of spirit spell, at least the 4th level. Xiao Zhu looked at the remaining law lights. After following Zichen for a few days, it was the largest amount of law lights she had seen in her life. She never thought that one day, she would be able to eat law lights until she was full. She also didn't know that one would have power when one was full. Zichen looked out of the window. After coming here for a few days, he didn't use up much of his power. However, it wasn't easy to replenish it. In these few days, Xiao Zhu refined 300 rays of power. But in order to recover, Zichen had refined more than 3,000 rays of power. Although he still had a lot of black stones on him, he couldn't handle such consumption. One must know that he only fought a few times last time. He hadn't experienced a real battle yet. So now, Zichen needed to obtain some law lights to prepare for emergencies. Moreover, he was certain that there were higher grades of light of law out there. For example, the one he got from killing the ancestor beast. Or else, with his realm, it would take a long time just to rely on these law lights for a big battle. Let's go out for a walk. Zichen went downstairs. Xiao Zhu followed behind. When the waiter saw the two of them, he immediately came up to them. Now, almost everyone in Okang's Pure Land knew that there was a tyrannical existence living in this inn. Zichen nodded at the waiter and brought Xiao Zhu out of the inn. When the waiter saw Xiao Zhu, there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Xiao Zhu had just obtained energy, and was still unable to control it. Hence, her aura was still in an external state. This aura made Little Fool clearly feel danger. In just a few short days, he had actually grown to such a level. While the waiter was shocked, he was also incomparably envious. It was clear that this lord had been constantly providing the light of law. Otherwise, how could there be such great progress? Zichen walked on the street. It was very lively here. Most of the people he saw were ordinary people without any power around them. Thus, Lil Bamboo's appearance immediately caused a commotion. Many people were looking at her in fear. In the eyes of these ordinary people, the 1st level of spirit cultivation was already an amazing existence. Back then, Luo-san was only at the 3rd level of spirit cultivation and dared to show off. Xiao Zhu saw respect in these people's eyes. Can I survive? Xiao Zhu tilted her head and looked at Zichen. It's hard to say. Zichen said. If you want to live an ordinary life, there should be no problem. But if you want to be extraordinary, I'm afraid it's not possible. Xiao Zhu said. I want to live an ordinary life. Zichen said again. If you live an ordinary life, you will never be able to repay the light of law you owe me. Xiao Zhu pursed her lips. Then I will continue to cultivate. But maybe... Zichen interrupted Xiao Zhu's words. There's no possibility. I'm not afraid of you owing me. The higher your realm, the faster you will be able to earn light of law in the future. Just like me, in less than a day, I obtained more than 2,000 light of law. Xiao Zhu nodded, and her confidence reappeared in her heart. In fact, Zichen's words were very misleading. But the current Xiao Zhu obviously couldn't tell. Galai's death caused quite a commotion in the Pure Land. His properties had all become ownerless, causing many people to be envious of him. When Wei Luo returned and heard the news, he immediately called all the influential people in the area over. Tell me about that person's background. He actually caused such a big commotion. Wei Luo looked at everyone present. Everyone was silent. Wei Luo said, Car, tell us. Car scratched his head and said, Sir, this matter really has nothing to do with me. Back then, I suggested Galai to apologize to Zichen, but he didn't listen. Everyone can testify for me. Wei Luo said. Galai's death has nothing to do with you. Today, I called you here to talk about that Zichen. Sir, I'm not familiar with that Zichen. I didn't even say a word to him. Haydn, on the other hand, drank with him. Maybe he knows something. Everyone looked at Haydn. Haydn said, I asked him back then, but he didn't say much. I suspect that he's from the upper realm. Upper realm? Wei Luo's expression changed. That's just my guess. I don't know what the truth is. As for the basis, I drank the wine he brought. The taste is many times better than the good wine in my shop. Haydn thought for a moment and said, Moreover, he's not familiar with the Pure Land. Just by hearing what Haydn said, the others guessed that the other party might be from the upper realm. He was so powerful, unfamiliar with the Pure Land, and had good wine. If he didn't come from the upper realm, where else could he come from? But why would someone from the upper realm come down? And come to their place? Wei Luo asked again. What do you think of his strength? Haydn shook his head and said, I don't know. Anyway, I can't beat him. Nonsense. If you can beat him, you won't be standing here. Next to him, someone mocked. Then do you think he's here for a walk, or is he planning to stay here for a long time? Or does he have other purposes? I'm not sure about that. Find a chance to sound him out. Also, Sir isn't here recently. Don't trouble that person again. Everything will wait for Sir to come back. Everyone nodded and then left. Haydn went to the inn again and coincidentally met Zichen and Xiao Zhu, who were returning. Haydn smiled and said, Drink? Zichen nodded and sat down. He took the initiative to take out a pot of wine. I have something to ask. Haydn's eyes lit up. With wine, everything can be discussed. He took the initiative to take the wine pot and poured 3 cups. Xiao Zhu sat at the side. Haydn glanced at Xiao Zhu, but with just a glance, his expression changed. First level of spirit technique. Isn't this too fast? At this moment, Zichen asked. Here, how can I earn the light of law? Haydn was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Zichen to ask this question. You plan to stay here for a long time? Haydn asked. If there's a way to earn the light of law, I might stay here for a long time. Zichen didn't hide it. At the very least, he didn't have any other clear places. Haydn said, There are many ways to earn the light of law. At the very least, you can form an adventure team to hunt ancestral beasts outside the Pure Land. Then Haydn pointed at his feet. For example, you can open an inn or do some business in the Pure Land. Haydn smiled in the end. Of course, these are all a bit slow. There's one last way, which is the fastest. Once you succeed, you don't have to worry about not having enough light of law. Oh? Zichen looked at Haydn. Chapter 52:14. Open up a Pure Land. Haydn's words made Zichen stunned. He was a little puzzled. Haydn said, Legend has it that the Pure Land is the product of the immortal's death in battle. There are many resources in it. The first person to discover the Pure Land will receive the immortal's gift and become the master of the Pure Land. This method was undoubtedly the fastest way to gain contribution points. Zichen said again. Last time, I killed the ancestor beast and got a light of law. Its grade is a little higher than the ordinary ones. Haydn said. That's a law spirit. 1 is equivalent to 100 light of law. Then Zichen asked a few more questions. Haydn answered almost everything he knew until the 3 of them finished a pot of wine. Zichen and Haydn drank mainly. Xiao Zhu only drank 2 cups. During this time, the waiter served a pot of tea and Xiao Zhu drank it. Haydn suddenly remembered something and said, Lord Wei Luo is back. I'll ask him if there's any business suitable for you in the Pure Land. Zichen nodded and said, Then I'll have to trouble you. After drinking the pot of wine, Haydn left and went to find Wei Luo. Before he came, he was still in a dilemma about how to talk to Zichen. He didn't expect Zichen to take the initiative to mention it. He went straight to Wei Luo and told her what Zichen had asked him. Wei Luo said, So, he's planning to stay here for a long time? Haydn said. He said that if there's a suitable way, he can stay here for a long time. Wei Luo snorted. He's got guts. He killed people here and now he dares to stay here for a long time. I don't know if he's confident or conceited. Lord, about Zichen. Haydn looked at Wei Luo. Wei Luo thought for a moment and said, Since that's the case, let's try first and see if he has the ability. How about this, you tell him that Caleb is dead. All his inns are empty and ownerless. If he's willing to take over, all the inns will belong to him. Wei Luo's face changed when he heard this. Lord, I'm afraid that's not appropriate. Many people are eyeing those inns in Gal. That's a real piece of fat meat. Fat meat is indeed delicious, but you need to have an appetite, right? Wei Luo said. Didn't he want to stay for a long time? Naturally, he has to show the corresponding strength. If he's not capable, then he deserves to die. Haydn nodded, indicating that he understood. You will be in charge of this matter. You must tell him all the properties. How much he can get back will depend on his ability. Yes. In the evening, Haydn returned to the inn and asked the waiter to find Zichen. Haydn held 2 pots of wine. This time, I'll treat you. At the same time, I'll tell you a piece of good news. Oh? Zichen sat down. Little Bamboo was still cultivating in the room. Haydn said, I met with His Excellency before. When he heard about you, he was a little surprised because he thought that you might leave soon. However, my lord said that it's better if you don't leave. That way, the dead Gale can hand over the inns under his control to you. Hand them over to me? Zichen was stunned. He didn't dare to believe it. Yes. This is what His Excellency said. If you have the ability, you can run those inns better. Zichen looked at Haydn. Running an inn requires ability? To be honest, when Gale obtained that large piece of land and used it to build inns, the use of connections far surpassed ability. Now that he's dead, those places have become ownerless. Everyone wants them. During this period of time, others have been secretly competing with each other, intending to divide them up. Haydn looked at Zichen. Therefore, His Excellency gave them to you. Naturally, you need ability to take them over. Zichen nodded. He understood. I'll take you to see them. After that, 50% of the inn's profits will be handed over to His Excellency Wei Luo. Haydn said. In the past, it was 30%. That was because everything here was built by Gale. Now that you're taking over the ready-made ones, the profits will be higher. Oh right, His Excellency also said that if you want to rebuild that collapsed place, you'll only get 10% of the profits. Zichen asked. Only the profits from running the inn? Haydn naturally understood Zichen's meaning. He nodded. Of course, only the inn. Before you came, Gale's inn had no problems running, and there were no other unexpected situations. Zichen believed that all the unexpected people should have been dealt with. Okay, take me to see it tomorrow. Zichen agreed. In fact, he didn't care much about the inn's profits. He still chose to agree because if he left one day, Xiao Shu would be able to survive. What he was really interested in was the adventurers who didn't earn the light of law the most, or looking for a pure land. Because in addition to being the master of a pure land, one could also sell a pure land, provided that the buyer could pay a sufficient price. Haydn didn't say anything, but Zichen could guess what he was going to do, and that was to plunder a pure land. Early in the morning the next day, Haydn brought Zichen to that street. Haydn stood at the entrance of the street and pointed ahead. From here, all the inns you see used to be Gale's territory, but now they are yours. The entire street was filled with them. Zichen looked at Haydn. Help me inform the managers of the inns and tell them to come here with the account books. Haydn was stunned. Zichen was treating him as a subordinate? Zichen saw Haydn's strange expression and said, If you don't have time, give me that waiter of yours. I think he's quite clever. Fine, you're not familiar with this place at first. I'll take you to familiarize yourself with it. Haydn walked forward. He had never been to such a dirty and messy place. Even if he was mentally prepared, he still frowned. Zichen stood at the entrance of the street. Perhaps he disliked the environment, but he didn't enter. After a while, 13 people came over. They were all holding account books in their hands. Their eyes were a little nervous as they followed behind Haydn. 13 inns. Including the original open space, there are 14 in total. Haydn walked over and said. Zichen nodded and then threw a pot of wine to Haydn. Thanks. Haydn smiled. He got a pot of good wine just by walking around. He was in a good mood and couldn't wait to run a few more errands. Zichen looked at the managers and smiled. Hello, everyone. I'm Zichen. I was the one who killed that Gale. Now that he's dead, the territory is mine. Now you're under my control. He pointed to the account books in their hands and said, Before looking at the things in your hands, I'll tell you my rules. If you make false accounts, I won't expel you, because I'll kill you directly. If you have family members, I'll kill all the men and keep the women. The 13 managers' faces all changed. They didn't expect that the new master's opening statement was to kill. Such a straightforward and powerful warning. I don't care if you've communicated with other people, because there's no need. I'll take care of this place. If they dare to cause trouble, I'll kill them all. Zichen said. People who can take a fancy to Gale's property are destined to not have much ability. Well, take your account books back. Tomorrow, go to his inn and find me. Then you'll report to me. Zichen waved his hand and then turned to leave. The 13 shopkeepers felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. Chapter 52:15. Haydn followed Zichen back. At this moment, he was full of admiration for Zichen. 13 inns. 13 shopkeepers. Zichen didn't look at the account book. He only said a few words and let them go back. He believed that when they came back tomorrow, the account book would be different from today's. Of course, if anyone dared to take the risk and test the weight of Zichen's words, Zichen would definitely take the opportunity to make an example out of them. Haydn followed Zichen and couldn't help but ask curiously, How do you plan to manage those inns next? Zichen glanced at Haydn. You want to know? Haydn nodded. As a businessman, he naturally wanted to see. Not to mention others, just those 13 inns would make a lot of money every year. They didn't need to be handed over to others. Although that street was dirty and messy, the ability to earn light of law wasn't weak at all. Because there were too many people who didn't have a tomorrow. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people envious. Let's see tomorrow. Back at the inn, Xiao Zhu was still refining the light of law. Actually, under normal circumstances, Zichen should find a place for her to consume her energy, and then refine it. But there wasn't time for that yet. The next day, the 13 shopkeepers came and waited outside the inn early in the morning. When the waiter saw these people, he was obviously shocked. In his eyes, these were all big shots. Zichen walked down from upstairs. He glanced at the 13 people and said, I thought you would come one by one. The 13 shopkeepers immediately bowed. They still had to show the necessary respect for this big shot. Zichen glanced at the 13 people and said, You are people from Galei. In fact, I don't want to use you from the bottom of my heart. Haydn also came when Zichen said this. He stood in the distance and didn't come to disturb. The 13 people's expressions changed slightly. Zichen continued, Because my business philosophy will be completely different from what you've done in the past. But if I just fire the 13 of you, you will definitely cause some trouble. As for me, I can also use these things to kill you. The 13 people's faces immediately turned pale. They could tell that this was not a warning, but a very casual mention of this matter. This meant that this was very likely to happen. But, if that's the case, I still have to find a few more shopkeepers and check their character. It's really too troublesome, so I might as well use you guys first. Who knows, maybe you guys will be very obedient. Zichen glanced at them and said, But even though I'm using you, I still hope that 2 or 3 of you can cause some trouble for me so that I can kill you. At the same time, you can also warn the others. This will make it easier for me to manage them. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey. He said it so straightforwardly. The 13 people's hearts skipped a beat. They couldn't see through this lord anymore. Xiao Er stood to the side. After hearing these words, his face was filled with admiration. As expected of a big shot, his words were so direct. Zichen continued, "While I'm looking at the account book, you can give your own opinions at any time. For example, if you feel that the number on the book is too small, you can add another number. Before that, I won't pursue the matter. But if I find out about it later, I'm sorry, but you have to die. You have to die, and so do your families. Believe me, I killed Gale without batting an eye. It's the same for you guys." Zichen smiled. "Most importantly, I won't get any other benefits from killing Gale. But it's different if I kill you. I'll search your residence and take all your wealth." This was a threat, but it was also a fact. The 13 people's faces changed again. 2 of them even had a look of horror on their faces. Zichen looked at one of them and said, "Give me the account book. I'll start with you. The rest of you can continue to consider." The shopkeeper directly knelt down and said in horror, "My lord, the number on the book is wrong. You need to add another 4,800 light of law. 4,800 points could be exchanged for 480 light of law." Zichen didn't say anything. He opened the account book and started to check it. There were no detailed notes on it, but there were the number and size of the rooms, as well as the charging standards. There were also other staff expenses and various other expenses. With Zichen's calculation ability, he could still make a rough calculation. After a rough calculation and adding those numbers, it was more or less enough. Of course, this didn't include the loot from their robbery. Zichen turned his head and looked at the waiter, saying, "Come, help me add this number." The waiter quickly trotted over and added some numbers. Then Zichen looked at the person on the far left. "It's your turn." The other party handed over the account book and said, "My lord, I just calculated again. I have to add a little more. 1,353 points." Zichen didn't say anything. He first looked at the numbers on the book. After feeling that it wasn't too much of a difference, he let the waiter add it. 13 people, one by one, Zichen looked at the account book one by one. The numbers on it were also increasing. The highest number was as high as 6,000 points. The rest were 1 or 2,000 points, equivalent to 1 or 200 light of law. Zichen looked at the last person. "It's your turn." That person handed over the account book, and didn't say anything after that. Zichen looked carefully and found that every expense was recorded in detail. Until the end, he didn't see the other party take the initiative to report. "What's your name?" Zichen glanced at him. That person said, "My lord, I'm called Laurent." Zichen put down the account book and nodded. After looking through the 13 account books, he found that the number of light of law on them had exceeded 300,000 points, which was 30,000 light of law. Such an amount was still very shocking to him. This didn't include the ones they robbed during the day. Zichen said, "According to the rules, take 30% of the original amount and turn it over." The 13 people nodded. Hayden frowned slightly, because according to the previous agreement, they had to take out half of it. Zichen suddenly looked at the waiter and asked, "What do you think of Rat Road Street?" The waiter was stunned. He clearly didn't expect Zichen to ask such a question. Zichen smiled. "I'm just saying. Don't be nervous. There are a lot of people there. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's the busiest street. It's just that the environment isn't very good." The waiter thought for a while and said, Zichen asked, "Then how many light of law do you think it'll take if the road there is repaired?" The waiter said, "Probably 1 or 200. Zichen looked at the person called Laurent. "What do you think? If the road is repaired, how many light of law do you think it'll take? If it's simple, 100 light of law won't be enough. If it's slightly better, it'll take about 300. If it's like this street, 1,000 won't be enough." This was already a good place. Zichen needed 2 light of law to stay here for 1 night. If it was Rat Road Street, he could stay for 20 nights. Chapter 52:16. Lawrence's eyes flashed with a strange look, and the other shopkeepers were also very surprised. They did not expect that the first thing this lord did was not to take away all the light of law, but to take out the light of law to repair the road. Clearly, it was not a simple road repair, but a good repair. This was a long-term plan. Zichen said, I don't have extravagant hopes for the same standards as here, but I definitely can't fool you. Laurent immediately nodded. Zichen said again, How much is your current remuneration? Everyone then talked about their respective remuneration, which was more or less about 10 strands of power a month. The waiter who was registering at the side was very envious when he heard this. Zichen said, From now on, if you are willing to stay, your remuneration will be tripled. The group of shopkeepers did not dare to believe it. Was this lord so generous? Could it be that there were some conditions? Sure enough, Zichen said again. However, from today onwards, all the inns on that street are not allowed to have any robberies. Zichen stared into the eyes of these shopkeepers. As long as there is a robbery, the inn shopkeeper will be expelled. If there is a theft, the shopkeeper will be responsible for the investigation. If there is no investigation, then the shopkeeper will pay for it. Haydn's eyes flashed with a hint of shock. He saw a big change. If this matter could be done, then the reputation of that street would naturally change. There were originally a lot of people there, and if there were no safety issues, he believed that there would be even more people gathering there. But the premise was that this matter could be done, because it involved too great of a benefit. Therefore, the following work will definitely not be easy. If you are willing to resign, you can leave now, and I will give you 3 more months of remuneration. Zichen's voice gradually turned cold. But if you choose to continue, then you have to be responsible for your own actions. To put it bluntly, in the future, you will no longer be able to scam money from Rat Road Street. If anyone violates the rules, once I find out, regardless of whether the shopkeeper instigated it or not, the shopkeeper will die. Zichen waved his hand and said, Go, consider it carefully, and give me an answer tomorrow. As for Laurent, you will start looking for people to repair the road today. Yes, my lord. Laurent took his account book and turned to leave. This lord was clearly different from the previous Jiaolei. After the shopkeepers left, Haydn walked over and asked, Why? Zichen said, Since we're doing business, we naturally have to consider the long term. Haydn said, Their previous model was actually quite profitable. In fact, from a certain point of view, other than the huge consumption of resources, your gains are actually not that great. Zichen smiled faintly. But if we do this, won't more people be able to live? Haydn was stunned. He looked at Zichen in confusion. Zichen said, Others don't affect your ability to make money. Since there's a way to let more people live, why let them die? Haydn nodded with a smile. He completely understood what Zichen meant. With Zichen in charge of that street, it might be a good choice. Zichen glanced at the waiter and said, Follow me from now on. The waiter was stunned and felt slight disbelief. Was his lordship inviting him? He was stunned. What, you're not willing? Zichen asked with a smile. The waiter hurriedly shook his head, but then he looked at Haydn. Haydn said, This is your opportunity. Many thanks, my lord. The waiter immediately bowed to Haydn, then to Zichen. Zack greets my lord. Go find Laurent now and follow him. Watch how he does things. Pay him 3 strands of astral magic power per month. Wait until you become a shopkeeper. Many thanks, my lord. The waiter was very excited. Not far away, the shopkeeper of this inn had a look of envy in his eyes. His luck was really good. That was because the innkeepers of those inns were paid 3 times the amount, which was even higher than his. To tell the truth, he was tempted. He immediately changed his clothes and left the inn to find Laurent. What do you plan to do with that empty place? Haydn asked. I haven't thought about it yet. Haydn hesitated for a moment, then said, Your reform this time has great prospects, but it has to go smoothly. Zichen understood Haydn's meaning. There were too many people in Rat Road Street, so there was a lot of partial wealth. Zichen's move was to cut off all the partial wealth. But where would so many people dare to take partial wealth? Even a shopkeeper could mobilize 500 strands of light. It could be seen that he had a lot to rely on. This kind of reliance was not only limited to the dead Caleb. Haydn left and went to find Wei Luo to inform him of Zichen's plan. Wei Luo said, "So, not only did he cut off a part of our wealth, he also secretly appropriated some of the light of law. He even reduced my share by 20%? At this moment, the 13 families had already handed over 30% of their light of law. Wei Luo's expression was naturally not good. Haydn said, "My lord, I can see a revolution. In the future, there should be fewer deaths in Rat Road Street." Wei Luo snorted. "So, this is the reason for deducting 20% of my resources? What does the life and death of others have to do with me? Also, without partial wealth, how will those who make a living survive?" A cold light flashed in Wei Luo's eyes. "Originally, I wanted to see if he had the ability. Now, he even dares to have ideas about me. It seems that his ability is not small. Could it be that my lord wants to take back that street?" Haydn looked at Wei Luo. Wei Luo snorted coldly. "I'm not going to go back on my words. However, he dares to deduct my things. His courage is not small. Go back and tell him that I've changed my mind. I want 60% of the profits." Haydn nodded. It was as he had guessed. Zichen's move was good, but it was only targeted at the ordinary people. It was not good for those who benefited. Partial wealth was still wealth. Haydn passed the message to Zichen. Zichen did not say anything. The next day, he had people send out another 30% of the profits. Rat Road Street began to rest and reorganize. At the same time, a series of orders were issued, which naturally caused a lot of dissatisfaction. Moreover, the people below might not listen to them. As a result, chaos appeared one after another. Zichen did not have anyone by his side that he could use, so he could only act personally. In order to get things done once and for all, he directly killed people. He killed them one by one until he reached the shopkeeper. Looking at the frightened shopkeeper, Zichen said, "You shouldn't have stepped forward." With that, the shopkeeper's head left his body. Rat Road Street. Of the 14 shopkeepers, the second one had died. Little fool Zack was immediately appointed as the new shopkeeper. Xiao Zhu, who was cultivating in her room, was also called out by Zichen. She would be supervising Rat Road Street from now on. Chapter 52:17. The hired thugs of the 13 inns were all dismissed. Rat Road Street announced to the outside world that it could guarantee the safety of everyone's belongings. There would be no more loss of items or danger of being robbed. This piece of news caused quite a stir. Everyone knew what Rat Road Street was like in the past. Anyone who had some savings would be shot to death in one night as long as they stayed there. Even though the announcement was made, not many people believed it. However, the changes in Rat Road Street were noticed by everyone. The streets were still narrow, but the roads were cleaned up and became incomparably clean. It was poles apart from the original dirty and messy streets. Zichen's deterrence also deterred the other shopkeepers who had crooked thoughts. Killing the shopkeeper wasn't the end. He also captured the dead shopkeeper's family. It was a woman with a fierce expression. "You're the one who killed my husband? When Lord Cody returns, you'll be dead. Cody will definitely kill you. Now you better let me go." The woman's eyes were fierce. Facing Zichen, she didn't have the slightest fear. Zichen nodded and said with gratification, "Thank you." The woman was dumbfounded. She was threatening him, and he was thanking her? Could it be that he had become a fool? In the next moment, the woman lost her head. Zichen, who couldn't bear it before, didn't have any psychological burden when he saw such a rude and unreasonable woman. That's right. How could someone who dared to commit a crime be an ordinary person? As for who that Cody was, Zichen didn't care. He only knew that this place was called Okon's Pure Land. The only person he was afraid of was the Pure Land's master, Okon. Killing the chicken to warn the monkey undoubtedly frightened the other shopkeepers. Because Zichen really did it. When one person made a mistake, his family would be implicated. Soon 3 people proposed to leave. Zichen didn't urge them to stay. He gave them 3 more months of salary as promised. They parted on good terms. Next, he promoted 3 more shopkeepers. Everything was slowly going on the right track. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. However, everyone knew that they were just waiting for some big shots to return. Zichen was still staying in Hayden's Inn. He didn't participate much in the development of Rat Road Street. In one night, Okane came back. He was badly injured. After entering the Pure Land, he returned to the depths and began his seclusion. He had no time to care about the matters in the Pure Land. Cody, who had returned with Okone, was the first to learn of Gal's death. "How dare you!" His expression was a little gloomy. "What right does he have to casually give our property to an outsider?" The next day, an uninvited guest came to Hayden's Inn. "Who's Zichen? Get out here!" A cold voice rang out. Hearing this voice, Zichen opened his eyes. He knew that trouble was coming, so he headed downstairs. "Are you Zichen?" Cody glanced sideways at Zichen. "You're the one who killed Galei? Rob him of Rat Road Street," Zichen said. "Galei was indeed killed by me. However, Gal asked me to take care of Rat Road Street." He guessed that this should be Cody, but he clearly didn't have any intention of standing up for the shopkeeper. If the dead shopkeeper's wife knew about this, who knew how she would feel? "You don't have the right to manage Rat Road Street," Cody said coldly. "If you dare to interfere with Rat Road Street's matters again, I'll wring your head off," Zichen said calmly. "Gal asked me to take care of Rat Road Street. If you have a different opinion, you can talk to Gal. If he passes on the message, I'll naturally leave." Cody's eyes narrowed. "What? My words don't have any effect on you. I don't know you, so your words naturally don't have any effect. In the matter of Rat Road Street, I only recognize Gal. Do you want to die?" Killing intent flashed across Cody's eyes. Zichen's expression didn't change at all. Facing the threat, he didn't even blink. "Before you convince Gal to take back his order, Rat Road Street will be under my management. Therefore, they have to follow the rules I set." "Good, very good," Cody said coldly. "Your rules, right? I want to see what kind of rules you have." With that, Cody turned and left. Zichen followed him out. Of course, he wasn't going to send him off, but to Rat Road Street. Halfway there, he saw Hayden, who had rushed over. Hayden came to Zichen's side and said in a low voice, "Cody is at the 6th level of spirit technique. He has always been by Lord Okone's side and has gained his trust. However, he doesn't participate in the management of the Pure Land. Everything is decided by Lord Gal." Zichen nodded and didn't say anything. "This time, the reason why he's targeting you should be related to Gal's death. All this time, he's been protecting Gal." Zichen nodded again and still didn't say anything. However, after walking a few steps, Zichen suddenly asked, "That Cody is obviously going to cause trouble. Go ask Lord Gal if he's going to leave him half alive or just let him die." Hayden's expression changed greatly. Was he that confident? "I'll go back and ask." This matter was of great importance. He didn't dare to be negligent and directly brought the message to Lord Gal. Lord Gal sat there and looked at Hayden. "Do you think he's really confident or just bluffing?" Hayden said, "I'm not too sure, but for this matter, we'd rather believe it's true than not. If Zichen really has the strength, then Lord Cody." Actually, Hayden believed that Zichen wouldn't joke around. However, he couldn't say it now because it would boost his morale. "Go tell Cody not to be impulsive. Just say that since I gave Rat Road Street to Zichen, it will be Zichen's in the future." Chapter 52:18. As this voice sounded, everyone looked towards the door. Zichen walked in. The innkeeper hurriedly saluted. The others guessed Zichen's identity, and also saluted with shock in their eyes. Zichen walked closer and looked at the person who shouted, "Are you sure you have 100 light of law?" The person didn't dare to look at Zichen, but he wasn't afraid either. He directly shouted, "Of course, 100. Zichen continued, 100 light of law isn't a small number. Where did you get it? The person said, "Why do you care where I got it? You just need to compensate me." Zichen smiled. "Of course I have to ask clearly. Otherwise, if a random person comes and says he lost the light of law, what should I do? You're considered a coward. If it's someone more daring, saying he lost 1,000 light of law, and then another person came and lost 3,000 light of law, would our inn still be open?" Zichen's eyes gradually turned cold. "I believe you should know very well what the inn was like in the past. The reason why it's changed now is to allow more people to live better. However, it seems that not everyone thinks that being able to live is a good thing." After hearing Zichen's words, the eyes of the people who were originally watching the show changed. Indeed, when someone used to live here, even if someone lost the light of law, they didn't dare to say anything. Moreover, this guy in front of them didn't look like someone who had 100 light of law. He was obviously here to cause trouble. "What? Are you saying that you don't want to admit it?" the person said with disdain. "If that's the case, then don't act like you want to change. I advise you to quickly close the door," Zichen said. "Whether you lost the light of law or not, you know very well in your heart. It's naturally impossible for me to find out where you lost it." Hearing this, the person laughed. "So, you want to cheat? No, as long as you can prove that you have more than 100 Dao lights, I'll compensate you." Zichen took out a pouch and opened it. "Since I said so, I will naturally abide by it. If you can prove that you have 100 Dao Law lights, then these 200 Dao Law lights will all be yours." Looking at the radiant light of law, the other party's eyes flashed with greed. "Now you just need to tell me when and what did you do to obtain 100 light of law," Zichen said. "Say it, and it's yours." When the other party heard this, he asked, "Really?" Zichen said. "I, Zichen, never lie." The other party said, "This morning, Zhao San gave me 100 light of Dao. Why did he give you 100 Dao Law lights? Do you have to ask?" "Naturally, I have to ask in detail." "I'll help him. I'll help him." Many thoughts flashed through the other party's mind because he was quickly thinking about what to do to obtain 100 light of law lights. "Right, I helped him kill a person. A person he hated very much. He gave me 100 light of law lights as a reward." After saying this, the other party said proudly, "Now it's time to give it to me, right?" Zichen said, "I still have something to say just now. If what you said is true, I can give you the light of law lights. But if it's false, then you have to die." The other party's expression suddenly changed. A cold light flashed in Zichen's eyes, and immediately a pressure fell on the other party. "Tell me, where is Zhao San and the person you killed? If I can't find them, you have to die. Even Cody can't protect you." When the other party heard this, he directly collapsed to the ground. Spare me." He made up what he said just now. Before coming, no one told him that the other party would ask in such detail and even find someone to verify it. Therefore, when he sensed Zichen's aura, he was completely afraid. "Sir, spare me." He was incomparably terrified. The others at the side looked at the other party coldly. It was not easy for the inn on Rat Road Street to have some changes. This was naturally a good thing for those ordinary people. They did not expect that someone would want to destroy it. "Tell me, who did it?" A trace of killing intent flashed in Zichen's eyes. "Tell me the person behind this, and I'll spare your life." "It's Luosi, he asked me to come." The other party was afraid and said this name. "This is impossible." Hearing this name, the shopkeeper's expression could not help but change. Zichen turned to look at the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper said, "Luosi is the shopkeeper of the east end of Rat Road Street. Let's go." Zichen pulled up the kneeling person. "If you're telling the truth, I guarantee that you won't die. These 200 light of law lights are also yours." "Sir, I guarantee that I'm telling the truth." If I'm lying, I'm willing to be struck by lightning. Zichen's expression was calm, but he was furious in his heart. He was not afraid of others coming to find trouble, but if there was a problem with an insider, then he had to be punished. The group of people came to the East End, and that existence immediately pointed at Luosi and said, "Sir, it's him." Seeing the group, Luosi's face immediately turned pale. "What nonsense are you talking about? What do I have to do with you?" "Sir, I'm telling the truth. He gave me 10 light of law and asked me to put on a show. He said that he would reward me afterwards." The other party immediately took out a small cloth bag and said, "Sir, the 10 light of law are here." Zichen looked at Luosi. Luosi's face became incomparably pale. "Sir, don't believe him. He's lying," Zichen said. "Your actions will not only kill you, but also implicate your family. I gave you a chance, why didn't you cherish it?" Seeing the killing intent in Zichen's eyes, Luosi panicked and immediately shouted, "Sir, save me! Sir Cody, save me!" Pooh! A light flew past, and Luosi's head left his body. Blood spurted out, dyeing the surroundings red. The surroundings were in an uproar. They did not expect Zichen to attack just like that. Zichen said, "Laurent!" "Sir!" Laurent appeared behind Zichen. The previous commotion was so big that all the shopkeepers of Rat Road Street came. Zichen said coldly, "Find his family and kill them directly, then bring back all the light of law." "Yes, sir!" Laurent immediately responded with cupped fists. He could feel Zichen's anger. "Also, if anyone obstructs, go find Sigiet and let him deal with it. If he's not willing to help, tell him that I'll beat him to death." "Yes," Zichen added. "Also, tell the other shopkeepers to give them another chance to choose. If they want to leave, give them 3 more months of remuneration." "Yes." Laurent nodded. In fact, all the shopkeepers were here. "Oh my, you look like you're quite a snob. Those who don't know would think that you're something amazing." Right at this time, a mocking voice sounded. "However, who the hell do you think you are? You dare to kill people here?" Zichen turned his head and looked at the person. It was Cody. Zichen asked, "You arranged for this person?" Cody sneered and said, "What if I say no?" Zichen said coldly, "Then scram! Don't let me see you again, coward!" A hint of killing intent flashed across Cody's eyes. "Then what if it was me?" Zichen disappeared. A rumble sounded. Chapter 52:19. With a loud rumble, Cody flew out of the inn and fell to the ground. The newly repaired road had a new human-shaped pit. Fresh blood spurted out from his mouth. Cody lay on the ground, staring at Zichen. Zichen lifted his foot and stepped on Cody's chest. "Since you've already admitted it, then don't blame me." Zichen began to exert force. The force entered Cody's body through his chest. His bones emitted cracking sounds. Cody smiled malevolently. "I've underestimated you. If you have the ability, then kill me." To be able to defeat him in one move, it was enough to see how tyrannical Zichen's strength was. Zichen said, "Do you know how Gale died? Is there a need for me to care about a dead person? If you have the ability, then kill me," Cody said coldly. "After killing me, I want to see if you can have a foothold here." Zichen smiled faintly. "It seems that your life is only worth this Rat Road Street." Cody's expression suddenly changed. "Since you think so lowly of yourself, then why should I think highly of you?" Zichen smiled coldly. "Whether I want this Rat Road Street or not, it doesn't matter. Just like your life, whether I kill it or not depends on a single thought. However, since you don't take your life seriously, why should I take your life as mine?" Killing intent flashed in Zichen's eyes. He lifted his foot and heavily stomped down. "So, since you're courting death, then I'll be a good person and grant you your wish." This time, he directly stepped on Cody's head. As if stepping on a watermelon, it was accompanied by a loud explosion. White and red splashed in all directions. Cody's body was twitching. There was no life left, only a conditioned reflex. Zichen bent down and searched the other party's body. He found an exquisite beast skin pouch. After opening it, he found nearly 100 rays of light. These rays of light were even brighter, and the power they contained was also even purer. These were lost spirits. One ray of light was equivalent to 100 rays of light. The light in front of him was comparable to the light of 10,000 das. Zichen couldn't help but sigh. This was the fastest way to obtain resources. Tidy up. After saying this, Zichen returned to Hayden's inn. Now that Cody was dead, he believed that no one else would dare to come looking for trouble. Unless the master of the Pure Land, Okon, didn't want him to stay here. The next day, the news of Cody's murder had spread as soon as the sun had risen. When Wei Luo heard the news, his expression also changed. "Did you see the situation of the battle? Was it very intense?" Hayden said. "I heard that Cody suddenly fell to the ground and then kept provoking Zichen. In the end, Zichen only used one foot to crush Cody's head. Where did this Zichen come from? Even Cody, who was at the 6th level, was stomped to death. Could he be at the 8th or 9th level? When the other party came here, he first killed the 5th level gal, then the 6th level Cody, not giving them any face at all. Although there was an element of provocation between the two, this was Okon's Pure Land after all. As an outsider, shouldn't he accommodate the locals? Pass the word, if you don't want to die, don't go looking for trouble." Wei Luo said in a deep voice. "I have to find the master and explain this matter clearly." After that, Wei Luo left and went directly to the depths. When he came to the core of the Pure Land, the spiritual power of heaven and earth here was more and more intense. As soon as he walked here, he heard a woman's wail and couldn't help but frown. It should be Cody's sister who had learned of Cody's death and was making a scene at the moment. Wei Luo coughed lightly and then walked in. A woman was looking at him with resentment. Wei Luo saluted Okon and shouted, "Master! It's you killed Cody!" The woman said coldly, "I want you to pay with your life." Wei Luo gave a fist salute and said, "Madam, I repeatedly reminded Cody not to provoke that Zichen, but he didn't listen." The woman said, "It's you. If you had driven him away directly, would there be such trouble?" Wei Luo did not respond this time. Obviously, this sentence was very idiotic. If he had driven Zichen away, he would probably be the one to die. "That Zichen, what's his background?" Okon asked. Wei Luo shook his head and said, "I'm not sure, but I suspect he's from the upper realm. His current combat strength is unknown." "The upper realm?" Okon frowned slightly. "Tell me about Zichen in detail." Before coming, Wei Luo had already inquired about it, including about Lil Shu, and even went outside to look for Old Jiao. He told him in full detail. After listening, Okon said, "So, he killed Gal because he brought that girl to Rat Road Street to experience it?" Wei Luo said, "That's indeed the case." Okon continued, "Then, you gave Rat Road Street to him, and his first order was to forbid stealing and robbing?" Wei Luo nodded again. "I've always wondered why he brought a total stranger with him. Thinking about it carefully, he probably didn't want to see her die. Because once Zichen enters the Pure Land, you can imagine how many girls will be left by Old Jiao's side." Okon said, "How can there be such a person in the world? Did we meet a saint? First for an ordinary person, then for an ordinary person on a street. Why don't the saint save me too?" Wei Luo did not respond. He could not tell whether this was a joke or a joke. "Sir, he must have an ulterior motive for doing this. We must kill him," the woman beside him said immediately. Okon smiled and said, "Tell me, if I give you to him, will he help me once?" "Huh!" The woman was stunned. "Sir, what did you say?" Okon's face became gloomy. "Here, women are the most worthless. You're not much better than other women, but you can live here and serve me alone. You're not like other women, serving everyone in order to survive. What do you think you're relying on? Beauty? Wrong, it's my pity. Haha, in that case, I'm also a saint." The woman's face became incomparably pale. Sir, you know that the other party is powerful, but you still want me to kill him. You don't want revenge, you want to kill me. Okon waved his hand and said, Wei Luo, she's yours. Wei Luo was slightly stunned. Why, you don't want it? Wei Luo reacted. Thank you, sir, for your reward. That Zichen, I'll personally go and see what kind of saint he is. Okon walked out of here and did not look at the woman again. Wei Luo smiled and said, Let's go. The woman looked at Wei Luo with resentment. Wei Luo stepped forward and slapped her. *TCH, I've wanted to slap you for a long time. Serve me well from now on, or I'll send you to Rat Road Street. Looking at the viciousness in Wei Luo's eyes, the woman was afraid. There was a hint of fear in her eyes. Wei Luo pulled her hair and dragged her back. When they returned to the residence, Wei Luo threw her directly on the bed and then pounced on her. In the room, the woman's screams kept coming out. Okon came to Hayden's inn. He sat on the first floor and ordered a pot of wine. In the room, Zichen opened his eyes. He felt the existence of Sure. So, he walked down from upstairs. Chapter 52:20. Zichen stood at the top of the stairs. Okon sat in his seat. The two looked at each other. For eyes met. An inexplicable pressure, with the two as the center, surged out. In the inn, everyone felt an inexplicable pressure, and many people found it difficult to breathe. The shopkeeper's face was pale, squatting in the corner, too scared to say a word. The waiters were nowhere to be seen. On the first floor of the inn, there seemed to be only 2 people left in an instant. The atmosphere was strange, and swords were drawn. There was no need to guess, the one sitting there was the strongest person in this pure land. Okon. Okon stretched out his hand, saying, Sit. As soon as this sentence came out, the pressure in the inn disappeared in an instant. The shopkeeper in the corner was sweating profusely, as if he had just experienced a life-and-death crisis. Zichen slowly went down the stairs. His expression seemed calm, but his mood was fluctuating greatly. Just a moment ago, he felt threatened. This was the first time someone had threatened him since he came here. Zichen sat opposite Okon, took the initiative to pour himself a cup of wine, and then looked at Okon, waiting for him to continue. Okon said, I heard that you have good wine on you. Zichen drank the wine in the cup in one gulp. A light flashed in his hand, and a pot of wine appeared. After opening it, the fragrance of the wine overflowed. Okon laughed. It is indeed good wine. Looking at the other's intoxicated expression, as if he really came to ask for wine, Zichen took the initiative to say, Sir, you came because of Cody's death? Okon put down the wine cup. Yes and no. Zichen looked at Okon, waiting for him to continue. Cody provoked you, and you killed him. He deserved it. I believe that if it was anyone else, they would not let him go. Okon said, This kind of brainless idiot is not worthy of my special attention. In fact, I'm very glad that such an idiot died early. In the future, if he were to poke a hole in the sky because of his own stupidity, then he wouldn't be the one to die. Zichen nodded and agreed with Okon. I came here mainly to meet you, or rather, to meet the saint. Saint? Zichen was stunned for a moment, as if he didn't quite understand the meaning behind these words. The people here believe in every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. Okon said, Ever since we gained consciousness, we have been like this. As long as there is profit, we don't need to consider others. As for sacrificing oneself for others, we have only heard of such things in legends. We call such people saints. Zichen said, I'm not a saint. No, from what I've heard, you are the legendary saint. Okon looked at Zichen. Otherwise, why would you do such a thankless thing? She was just a wild girl. She could fend for herself. But Zichen didn't, and brought her to the Pure Land. Afraid that she would go astray, he personally brought her to experience the dangers of the world. If Rat Road Street developed according to its original plan, everyone would be able to earn light of law, and there would only be more and not less. But Zichen didn't, he chose another path. Looking at Okon's serious expression, Zichen's expression also became serious. In any case, we are all earning light of law. I just feel that we can earn more this way. As for sacrificing oneself for others, I have never thought of that. That's absolutely impossible, Okon said. If we are talking about business, the method we choose can maximize the benefits. Zichen smiled and said, Take Little Bamboo for example. If I didn't bring her here, she would have died long ago and would have no value. But after coming here, she became a spirit cultivator and has great potential in the future. The light of law I invested in, compared to her future gains, is not even a hair from 9 oxen. Okon naturally didn't think so. There were too many uncertain factors in this. He asked, If you were the master of the Pure Land and faced danger, what would you do? Zichen didn't even think and said, Naturally, I would protect the Pure Land well. If I encountered a crisis that I couldn't resolve, I could only try to see if I could protect the Pure Land to the greatest extent. For example? Okon looked at Zichen. Zichen said, For example, I would leave the Pure Land behind so that the people inside can live. Zichen had done such things many times. Okon said, Why not just destroy the Pure Land? It's better to die in glory than to live in dishonor? Zichen smiled and said, Since it's my Pure Land, it's naturally my home. The people I care about live there, as well as the people who trust me. Directly destroying it would be great. Moreover, preserving the Pure Land also preserves the possibility of the future. One day, when I become strong, I can take back the Pure Land. Okon said, Are these your true thoughts? Zichen nodded. Okon stood up and said, After seeing you, I seem to have regained my confidence in this world. Perhaps I should also go out for a walk and see the wider world. After that, Okang left, but he didn't finish the wine. Zichen didn't know the other party's intentions, but he understood one thing. After Okon left, no one dared to come to Rat Road Street to cause trouble. Cody was killed, and the master of the Pure Land went to find Zichen. However, Zichen was still unscathed. This was enough to see many problems. Therefore, no matter how many people were thinking about Rat Road Street before, they had no choice but to give up now. With Cody's example as an example, no one dared to steal from Rat Street again. Therefore, the reputation of Rat Road Street was spread back in a very short time. There were many poor people in the Pure Land. They all lived in places like Rat Road Street. It was different from the past. After having a few rays of light of law on their bodies, they lived in fear and trepidation. This time, with Zichen's promise, they openly stayed in the inns of Rat Road Street. Once the light of law was lost, they would go find the shopkeeper. With reputation, there would naturally be business. In the following days, the 13 inns of Rat Road Street were filled to the brim every day. Other than cultivating, Little Bamboo would also patrol this street. Currently, she was still at the first level of Spirit Dharma. Outside the Pure Land, a group of 5 people came. The leader of the black-robed man stared ahead. Are you sure there are no problems here? The latest news we heard is that the master of this Pure Land, Okon, was severely injured when fighting for the entrance last time. The person behind said. Furthermore, in this Pure Land, other than Okon, there are only 2 8th-level Spirit Dharma and 2 6th-level Spirit Dharma. Hearing that, the black-robed man said, Then there are no problems. He waved his hand and said, Let's go. The group of 5 headed towards Okon's Pure Land. Walking to the entrance of the Pure Land, the guards saw the 5 people with unfriendly expressions and tactfully didn't go up to ask for the entrance fee. After the 5 people entered the Pure Land, they headed straight for the depths. Boom! A terrifying aura exploded in the depths. In this area, there was a special group of people. They hunted the master of the Pure Land and plundered the Pure Land for a living. Chapter 52-21. Powerful energy erupted from the depths of the Pure Land. The terrifying aura surged, and the Pure Land shook. Such a sudden change alarmed everyone. Everyone was at a loss, not knowing what had happened. Everyone, come to the depths of the Pure Land. Raiders have appeared! Okon's voice suddenly spread throughout the Pure Land. Everyone's expression changed greatly. Raiders! This was a group of terrifying existences that made a living by plundering the entire Pure Land. Wherever they passed, the lucky ones would leave behind a broken Pure Land. Most of the Pure Land would explode, and there would be countless casualties. Run, the raiders are here! Run quickly! It's over, it's completely over. The Pure Land was instantly in chaos, and the people living there began to flee. Once the Pure Land was destroyed, more than half of the ordinary people in the Pure Land would die. No one was willing to stay. When the chaos appeared, Zichen also walked out of the inn. Looking at the panicked crowd, he frowned, and suddenly remembered what Okon said before. Did he mean something? Sir! A cry of alarm sounded, and Xiao Zhu ran in this direction. Behind her, Laurent and the other shopkeepers, as well as some subordinates, followed. Sir, the Pure Land is about to be destroyed. Xiao Zhu came in front of Zichen and said, The people here are about to die, let's run quickly. Zichen looked at Laurent and the others with a calm expression. Sir, these raiders specialize in hunting the Pure Land. Once they set their eyes on us, the Pure Land will most likely be destroyed. Laurent said, While the battle hasn't spread here yet, let's hurry and leave. Zichen asked. Where to? Laurent said. No matter where to go, it's better than staying here and waiting for death. Zichen looked at them. In fact, he couldn't blame these people. They were all very weak, and besides running, there was no other way. But Zichen had a way. He looked at everyone, and finally looked at Xiao Zhu and said, Come, follow me inside to take a look. Xiao Zhu was stunned. Zichen didn't give her time to hesitate or refuse, and walked straight into the depths. Xiao Zhu followed. Laurent and the others stood there, motionless. This scene was very unexpected. They had thought that the Lord would take them away and choose the second Pure Land. Shopkeeper, should we run? Someone asked in a low voice. Laurent's expression changed, and then he cursed. Run my ass! Let's go back and guard our property. It was obvious that Milord had gone to the depths to provide support. The other shopkeepers were stunned and found it hard to believe. Go back! Zack, who used to be a waiter, said. Protect our family business well. If it wasn't for Zichen, he wouldn't be where he was today. He believed in Zichen. That's why I'm not leaving. The depths were a complete mess. The battle was extremely intense. One entity after another fell. One expert after another was killed. Of the 5 plunderers who came, each had a strong battle strength. Among them, there were 4 who were at the 9th level of spirit cultivation. The other was an even more powerful arcane annihilation. This kind of battle prowess was indeed beyond the strength of this Pure Land. Wei Luo Haidan and the others were all heavily injured. There were also many who died in battle. Okon stood there with a bloody hole in his chest. He looked at the black-robed man in front of him and said, How about we have a discussion? The black-robed man smiled coldly. Discuss what? Okon said. I'm leaving. I'll leave the Pure Land to you. Treat the people here well in this Pure Land. The black-robed man sneered. Do you have the qualifications to talk to me like this? Okon said again. You know very well that I didn't use the power of the Pure Land. Otherwise, my battle strength would be even stronger. You might not be able to suppress me. The black-robed man had a look of disdain. You only have the qualifications to say this when you're at your peak. You're injured. Even if you use the power of the Pure Land, you definitely won't be able to defeat me. Otherwise, why would I come here? Aokong sighed and said, You see, I've already said that in this world, this kind of method simply won't work. This world doesn't pay attention to this. The black-robed man frowned slightly. Okon's words were very clearly not directed at him. Okon still did not give up and said, I'll give you all the wealth, how about leaving this Pure Land behind? Dream on. The black-robed man said coldly. You all must die. A hint of madness suddenly appeared in Okon's eyes. Just looking around, Looking at the people who were seriously injured and lying on the ground, as well as those who died in battle, a hint of reluctance appeared in his eyes for the first time. However, the outcome was already decided. Right at this time, a person walked over from afar. To be precise, there were two people. However, the person behind was automatically ignored. Sage! Seeing that person appear, the injured Wei Luo, Haydn, and the rest all had a hint of surprise on their faces. While Okon cried out loudly, his expression very excited. With the arrival of a sage, things might take a turn for the better. When Wei Luo and the rest heard this, their eyes also lit up. In the past, they were all worried that Zichen's battle strength was too strong, posing a threat to this pure land. Now, they only hoped that Zichen's battle strength would become stronger and stronger. Sage? The black-robed man smiled faintly. This name is quite interesting. Then, he waved his hand and said, "For let this sage see your strength." The man named For smiled coldly and walked towards Zichen. Buzz! A tyrannical aura completely erupted, and there was an additional pressure in the air. Feeling this pressure, Zichen's expression changed for the first time. 9th level spirit spell? Hearing this sentence, Wei Luo and the rest were in despair. It seemed that this was not a true expert. The 9th level spirit spell laughed. What, are you scared, silly? I thought you had some means to dare to come to this place. It turns out that you're just a hothead. The aura of the 9th level spirit spell was enough to suffocate everyone present. Right at this time, Zichen disappeared. The 5 black-robed men's faces changed for the first time. Courting death! The 9th level spirit spell shouted, crossed his hands, and blocked. A tyrannical aura erupted. Boom! A huge tremor suddenly sounded, and the 9th level spirit spell flew out. He landed heavily on the ground. Zichen stood where the 9th level spirit spell was, his expression indifferent. The others were stunned. He could even fight against the 9th level spirit spell? 4! The black-robed man shouted. The 9th level spirit spell turned over and looked at Zichen, his eyes full of killing intent. I want you to die! Zichen's figure flashed and disappeared again. Another roar sounded. The 9th level spirit spell was hit in the chest, and his body bent like a shrimp as he flew towards the sky. Fresh blood splattered in the air. Zichen's voice also sounded at this time. We're all 9th level spirit spell, why are you so weak? As his words fell, Zichen lifted his foot in the air and stomped down. Boom! The 9th level spirit spell's body directly smashed onto the ground. There was a human-shaped pit on the ground. Chapter 52-22. Boom! A terrifying shockwave swept out, and the 9th level spirit spell cultivator sank deep into the ground. Blood gushed out. His internal organs had all been shattered. His life force was extinguished. Everyone was stunned. He died just like that. A 9th level spirit spell cultivator was trampled to death just like that. How arrogant and insufferably arrogant was the other party just now. He died just like that. Following that, Hayden and the others had a touch of excitement on their faces. The situation might be reversed. Okon was also very surprised, but then he laughed. If this was the case, the outcome of this battle might not be certain. He looked at Zichen and said, I feel that I am beginning to believe in this world again. Zichen did not respond, but looked at the second 9th level spirit spell cultivator. The black-robed man narrowed his eyes and killing intent surged in his eyes. Swish! Okon's figure flashed and came in front of the black-robed man. Your opponent is me! Next, even if the Pure Land loses more than half, I will stop you. The 3 of you kill him! The black-robed man snorted. I don't believe that he can fight 1 against 3. The other 3 9th level spirit spell cultivators directly charged towards Zichen. The 3 of them joined forces. The terrifying shockwave formed directly sent Hayden and the others flying. Just the aura fluctuation alone was something they could not block. Zichen stood there motionlessly, waiting for the 3 to arrive. The 3 of them approached. one of them shouted angrily. Courting death! It was the first time for them to be underestimated like this. He slammed out a palm, and a terrifying palm print, carrying the aura of the 9th level, went straight for Zichen. Facing this palm, Zichen raised his hand. 2 fingers pressed down like a sword. Chi! A sharp light appeared. The sharp light moved forward and turned into a huge blade light, extremely terrifying. Mountain cutting technique. Geshan's move from back then, many years later, appeared in the immortal law world. The palm print in front was instantly split into 2. Following that, the light did not decrease in power and charged towards a 9th level spirit spell cultivator. Puff! The body of the 9th level spirit spell cultivator was directly split into 2. The second person at the 9th level of spirit cultivation had died. At this time, the other 2 people, one on the left and one on the right, arrived in front of Zichen. Each of them attacked. Their palms were like blades, directly chopping towards Zichen's neck, intending to chop off Zichen's head. Zichen stood there, facing the attacks of the 2 without dodging. Their glowing palms landed on Zichen's neck one after another. However, their tyrannical strength did not manage to chop off Zichen's head. It was as if they were striking steel, and the recoil caused their palms to feel incomparable pain. When the 2 saw this, their faces couldn't help but change greatly, and they were about to retreat. At this moment, Zichen stretched out his palm and slapped the 2 of them on the head. With a loud explosion, the 2 of them were sent flying. After falling to the ground, there was no sign of life. Previously, Zichen had said that they were all at the 9th level of spirit cultivation, so why were they so weak? In the blink of an eye, the 4 of them were killed cleanly. Only the black-robed man was left. However, he was a powerful spell destroyer. Hayden and the others were extremely excited. At this moment, the situation had completely reversed. Even if they couldn't kill this person, as long as both sides worked together, there wouldn't be any problems protecting this pure land. Interesting, this is really interesting. The black-robed man glanced at Okon and then at Zichen. I didn't expect that today. I would be pecked in the eye by a wild goose, causing me to lose 4 subordinates. Following which, a cold intent flashed across the black-robed man's eyes. However, if you think that you already have victory in your grasp, then I can only say that you are childish. Zichen's eyes flashed slightly. His body suddenly shifted to the side, and then the aura around him exploded. 1. The aura of the 9th level of spirit cultivation, but it was much stronger than the previous 4. Like an eruption of a mountain flood, the aura was surging. Zichen punched forward, and it looked like he was hitting the air. In the next moment, there was a huge tremor. A powerful shockwave spread out in all directions, and Zichen's body slid backwards. In front of him, the black-robed man's figure appeared. He looked at Zichen with a stunned face. You can actually see me? At this moment, the black-robed man in the distance disappeared. Don't let him run away! Okon reacted and let out a loud shout. The pure land shook, and the spiritual power between heaven and earth gathered crazily towards Okon, and then pressed towards the black-robed man. In Zichen's perception, Okon, the master of the Pure Land, mobilized the power of the Pure Land. He wasn't surprised by this kind of fighting method. Sitting in the Pure Land, like the world lord of the 10,000 spiritual realm, could borrow the power of the world itself. You are courting death! A murderous intent flashed in the black-robed man's eyes. The power of Spell Destroyer was then mobilized, and he immediately broke free from Okon's suppression. Swish! He didn't fight desperately, but wanted to escape. At this moment, Zichen's foot tapped, and his figure soared into the air, and another punch fell. There was a loud boom. Okon was beaten back for the second time. Okon took the opportunity to punch down, and the black-robed man turned around to block. The fist light exploded in front of him. He also borrowed the force, wanting to escape. Thus, Zichen defeated the opponent for the 3rd time. Surrounding Luo and the others were shocked. It was just that the power displayed by Zichen, who was at the 9th level of spiritual cultivation, was too strong. In their view, Zichen could deal with the black-robed man with ease. But no one knew why Zichen didn't kill the black-robed man. Could it be that he wanted Okon to kill the other party? The black-robed man who was beaten back turned around and punched Okon. Even if he mobilized the power of the Pure Land, Okon still coughed up blood. He was injured previously, and now he was no match for the black-robed man. "Ha ha! It seems that you can't kill me at all." The black-robed man laughed. "If that's the case, then I'll leave." As soon as the words fell, the black-robed man's figure swayed in midair and disappeared. "Zichen, don't let him escape!" Okon shouted. Once such an existence escaped, what followed would be a disaster. Seeing this, Zichen could only reach out his hand again. This time, it was no longer to stop. He directly attacked. 2 fingers slashed down. Heaven-cleaving technique. The light flew into the sky, directly tearing a huge gap there. The Pure Land was broken in one move. The black-robed man appeared. He turned his head and looked at Zichen in disbelief. "You!" He only had time to say one word, and his body was split into 2 in midair and smashed to the ground. Dead? A Dharma destroyer died just like that. At this moment, everyone was stunned. They were saved, and everyone's face should have been ecstatic. But at this moment, when they regained their senses, there was only fear in their eyes. At this moment. If Zichen wanted to, he could kill everyone here. Then, the master of the Pure Land would naturally change hands. Zichen didn't seem to see the fear in everyone's eyes. He walked in front of the dead Dharma destroyer and searched his body. He didn't find anything. Soon, he saw the other party's ring and immediately took it off. After that, he didn't say anything and turned to leave. He only took the spoils of war from the Dharma destroyer and left the items of the other 4 9th-level spirit spell masters. Okon stood there, his face pale. Looking at Zichen's back, he said emotionally, "We really met an incredible existence. This is our luck." The others nodded. If Zichen wanted, Okon's Pure Land would change its name today. But he obviously didn't. Turning to leave was his attitude. Okon said, "If he wants, Rat Road Street will belong to him from now on." Chapter 52-23. Okon waved his hand and looked at Wei Luo with disdain. "Do you think he cares about your little bit of light of law?" Wei Luo was stunned when he heard that, then smiled bitterly and said, "Yes, I'm shallow. Back then, I insisted on increasing the share, but he didn't care. Now that I think about it, it's really childish and laughable." Okon said, "The so-called strong are for the common people of the world. He was like this before, and he's also like this when he reorganized Rat Road Street." On the side, a person staggered forward. "Sir, I think his realm isn't as high as yours." Okon glanced at him. The others also had pity in their eyes. He really didn't know how to chat. That Zichen was obviously not an ordinary person. Not to mention that the injured sir was no match for him. Wasn't that law destroyer also killed in one move? What was the use of having a high realm? Didn't he know that the strong could fight above their realm? "If he doesn't leave, go and apologize to him." Okon looked at Wei Luo. Wei Luo immediately nodded. Then Okon said again, "From now on, the price of entering the Pure Land will be increased by 3 times. Originally it was 100 light of law per person, but now it was 300. When Wei Luo heard that, his eyes flashed with coldness. "Sir is benevolent." This was not sarcasm, but the truth. Those people had run away earlier, and now they wanted to come back. 3 times the price was indeed benevolent. After all, they left when there was danger, and now that the danger was over, they wanted to come back. How could there be such a good thing in the world? Wei Luo was particularly concerned about this matter, so he immediately arranged for someone to guard the door. In order to avoid suspicion, Zichen left and returned to Hayden's inn. There was no one here. He looked at the counter, and the wine on it had been emptied. It seemed that Hayden's loss this time was not small. They should have all left. Xiao Zhu, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. It had been a long time since the battle ended, but her heart was still filled with shock and fascination. She hoped that one day she could become so powerful. Zichen smiled slightly, then left and came to Rat Road Street. The streets of Rat Road were empty. However, as Zichen appeared, one existence after another walked out of the inn. After seeing Zichen, immediately cheered. When the shopkeepers walked out of the inn and saw Zichen, they immediately bowed respectfully and called him sir. Zichen nodded at the crowd and said, "It's fine, get back to work." Even louder cheers sounded. "By the way, find me a room. I'll be staying here from now on," Zichen said. "Sir, stay at my place." "My place? Bull***T, your place is a shared bed, how can people live there?" The shopkeepers were very these words at this moment, they sincerely, there was ye. The news quickly spread, and those who had not managed to escape in time rejoiced incomparably. Therefore, Lord Ocone said that the price for everyone who enters the Pure Land will be increased from the original 100 light of laws to 300 light of laws. Being able to kill a well-prepared raider was a surprise to all of them. They didn't say much. After giving the light of laws, they entered the Pure Land. These people clearly looked down on Rat Road Street and went to the inn on Hayden Street. In the next few days, injured existences came to Ocone's Pure Land one after another. The originally quiet Pure Land became a place of hidden dragons and crouching tigers in a short few days. Because those injured people were all staying in inns to recuperate. Once they recovered from their injuries, they would become an extremely terrifying force. It shouldn't be a problem to overturn a Pure Land. Zichen didn't know about this. He had been staying in the inn on Rat Road Street. Currently, there wasn't a single spirit mage here. Very simple, they didn't like it. Those spirit mages didn't like this place, but Ocone liked it. Today, he personally came to visit. The moment he saw Zichen, he took out a cloth bag. Zichen opened it in confusion and saw that there were 10 crystals inside. Instantly, the light illuminated the room. Surging energy flowed out. "This is?" Zichen looked at Ocone. "Crystallization of laws." Chapter 52-24. Zichen took out a law crystal, which contained even purer and richer heaven and earth energy than law spirits. It could be considered an advanced version. Ocone said, "This one is equivalent to 1,000 law spirits. It's very easy to exchange the former for the latter, but it's much more difficult to exchange for a law crystal with law spirits." When Zichen heard this, his expression changed slightly. A law spirit was equivalent to 100 law lights. In that case, this law crystal was comparable to 100,000 law lights. Ocone took out a total of 10 law crystals, which were equivalent to 1,000,000 law lights. He looked at Ocone, waiting for him to continue. If it was just to thank him for last time, he would have come long ago and not wait until today. "To be honest, there are too many people here this time, and I'm worried that some of them are plotting something. I hope you can guard the core of the Pure Land," Ocone said with a worried expression. "Because once the core of the Pure Land is shattered, the Pure Land will disintegrate and eventually dissipate from this world." Obviously, he paid a high price to hire a bodyguard. Zichen said, "I've heard about those people. With my strength, I'm afraid I won't be able to fight them." Zichen knew what he was capable of. Ocone said, "At the critical moment, I can give you the power of the Pure Land." Zichen was very surprised, because handing over the power of the Pure Land meant that the Pure Land would change owners. Looking at Zichen's doubtful eyes, Ocone said, "If you really wanted this Pure Land, it would have been yours from the start. So, I trust you on this matter." Zichen put away the crystal and said, "I promise I'll do my best, but I won't protect it with my life." Ocone laughed heartily. "Your words are enough," Zichen said. "May I ask why so many injured people came here?" Ocone said in a deep voice. "To be honest, a new Pure Land was discovered nearby, and everyone came from there." Zichen looked at Ocone. "So, the last time you were injured you also came back from there?" Ocone nodded. It was said that after the immortal spirit died, it would turn into a pure land. For the people who lived here, the pure land contained great wealth. Other than resources, some people were lucky enough to find treasures left behind by immortal spirits, which could be used to increase their own strength. Zichen and Okon walked towards the core of the Pure Land. Aside from humans, there were also ancestral beasts and mantis demons. I was injured by one of the mantis demons, so I had to retreat with everyone. Okon talked about the Pure Land while walking. Hybrid demons? Zichen was a little surprised. What's that? There's another race that's our sworn enemy. We won't rest until we're dead. This reminded Zichen of the extralegal demons. However, he did not ask whether extralegal demons and fiends were the same. Once again, they came to the core. The spirit energy here was extremely dense. Okon brought Zichen to visit the core of the Pure Land. There were some buildings here that were built by Okon and his people. This place is already dense. After I used the spirit gathering array, the spirit energy became even denser, Okon said proudly. Here, it's the same day and night. There's no need to worry about spirit energy consumption. Looking at the proud Okon, Zichen did not say anything. These buildings looked very beautiful, but if one carefully sensed the spirit arrays below, they were really ordinary. However, thinking about it, Zichen had obtained the inheritance of the Tao of Divine Inscriptions, and there were too many high-level arrays in it. Along the way, they met some beautiful maids. After seeing the two of them, these maids also stopped and knelt down to salute. After Okon waved his hand, they left. Zichen's soul power spread out in all directions, and this time, he began to explore the depths of the core. Then, he found that there were actually a lot of women. It seemed that Okon was very fond of this. Just after releasing his soul power, he found a strange place. The energy flow there was somewhat different. Or rather, it was incompatible with this Pure Land. But Zichen felt a sense of familiarity. He originally thought that Okon would take him there to take a look, but Okon did not. It should be a strange place, and Zichen did not ask much. After that, he lived in the depths. In order to not be affected by Okon, Zichen deliberately lived in a farther place. Okon actually did not care. Along the way, he said that he would give his women to Zichen. At the same time, he said that sending maids was not good enough, and he could only send his women. He even asked Zichen to pick and take away whichever he liked. Zichen refused. He was not good at this. Next, Zichen lived in the depths of the Pure Land, on guard against someone suddenly attacking. As Okon said, after coming here, his strength would almost never disappear. There was no need to worry about the night. This was much better than the periphery. Compared to the outside of the Pure Land, it was the difference between heaven and hell. As time passed, people recovered from their injuries one after another. This Pure Land was immediately no longer peaceful. Where there were people, there would be Jianghu. Where there was Jianghu, there would be fighting. When enemies met, their eyes would be exceptionally red. A great battle broke out. After the battle, several inns on Haiden's street had collapsed. Hearing this news, Zichen could not sit still. His Rat Road street had already collapsed an inn, and it had not been rebuilt yet. If someone destroyed a few more, it would be troublesome. It would affect business. Seeing that Zichen was about to leave, Okon hurriedly said, "Be careful, this is the enemy's diversion." Zichen waved his hand and said, "No matter. If there is an accident, I will rush over immediately." After hearing this, Okon became anxious. That Rat Road street has almost no value. Why do you care? How about this, after this matter is over, I will build a street nearby and give it to you. Clearly, after the previous incident, Okon was completely afraid. He was worried about what if. Zichen refused. He repeatedly told Okon that if there was any danger, he would definitely rush over in time. Okon naturally did not agree. He thought to himself, why do you, Zichen, care about that lousy place? Zichen said, this might be the enemy's probing. If we don't go out to stop it, they might set the battlefield here in the next moment. Therefore, going out early might be a good way to resolve the crisis. Okon thought about it and felt that it made sense. He then said, "This is also good. But you have to take care of the other streets. Don't just look at Rat Road Street. After the matter is over, you can ask for any street you want. Rat Road Street is pretty good." Zichen left the depths and walked outside. After the first battle broke out, no one came out to stop it. The second battle soon broke out. The surrounding buildings were even more damaged. Zichen came out. His indifferent voice spread all around. Okon's Pure Land forbids fighting. If you want to fight, go out and fight. But before that, compensate for the losses. This sentence quickly spread. The eyes of Hayden and the others who were vexed immediately lit up when they heard Zichen's voice. Was Lord Zichen going to make an appearance? Who do you think you are? How dare you control us? A small lousy place like this has rules? I will destroy this place on purpose. Come out and stand in front of me. Let's see if you still have the guts to speak. As Zichen's voice fell, loud curses immediately rang out. Chapter 52-25. Zichen's words were followed by a wave of scolding. No one was afraid of such a threat. And once one person scolded, the others started to scold as well. They had all recovered from their injuries and had some strength now. For a moment, the scolding continued. Zichen appeared from the scolding. He walked over from the street with a cold expression. "Those who violate the rules die. Who do you think you are?" Immediately, a 6th-level spirit spell cultivator walked out. He pointed at Zichen's nose and said, "Dog, why don't you take a piss and look at yourself? What kind of morals are you?" As the first bird to stand out, Zichen of course wouldn't hold back. He was like a ray of light, flying forward from the street. The 6th-level spirit spell cultivator also shouted and punched forward. Hong! A huge tremor sounded. The 6th-level spirit spell cultivator flew out. He landed 100 feet away. After crashing onto the ground, he started to cough blood, his eyes filled with shock. Zichen appeared beside him, his eyes cold. "Those who violate the rules die." With a stomp, the other party was trampled to death with a loud bang. A 6th-level spirit spell cultivator died just like that. Immediately, many people were shocked. Zichen's gaze swept around. Those who were scolding earlier all turned their heads to look elsewhere. "Calculate the losses and let the people who destroyed this place pay 10 times the compensation," Zichen said indifferently. 10 times the compensation, you really dare to ask for an exorbitant price. Just at this moment, a mocking laugh sounded. Zichen looked at the other party and said, 100 times the compensation. You still dare to challenge me, you have some skills? The other party laughed coldly and said, Seeing how you killed a 6th-level spirit spell cultivator so cleanly, I wonder what you can do against a 7th-level spirit spell cultivator like me? The moment his words fell, without waiting for Zichen to make a move, this 7th-level spirit spell cultivator took the initiative to make a move. His figure flashed and disappeared. Hong! Zichen narrowed his eyes and snorted coldly. He immediately turned around and punched behind him. Following the appearance of this punch, the 7th-level spirit spell cultivator who had just disappeared appeared in front of Zichen's fist. It looked as if he had taken the initiative to collide with Zichen's fist. With a loud boom, the other party was also sent flying. The next moment, Zichen lifted his foot. Wait! The other party shouted, his face full of fear. But it was useless. Since he was trying to establish his might, there was naturally no way he would spare his life. His foot chopped down. Boom! 7th layer of spirit spell realm, dead. To be able to kill a 7th-level spirit spell cultivator so easily, he had to be at least in the 8th stage, or even the 9th stage. Furthermore, with such a strong combat strength, there was a possibility that he might be even stronger. The surroundings instantly became quiet. Zichen said nothing more and turned to leave. It was only after he had walked far away that the sounds of discussion could be heard. I didn't expect that there would be such a character in this tiny Pure Land. In the crowd, A middle-aged man smiled faintly. Beside him, someone whispered, "Sir, could he be a destroyer of laws?" The middle-aged man shook his head. "It doesn't seem like it. Sensing the energy fluctuations, it's only at the spirit spell realm. However, it's definitely not an ordinary spirit spell. As for the specifics, I'll need another decent opponent. Why don't I go test him?" The person beside him immediately said, "Forget it. He's obviously killing people to establish his might. It's good if you go out and win. If you lose, then only death awaits you." The middle-aged man waved his hand and said, "Let's go. We'll go to Rat Road Street." "Rat Road Street? That person has quite a few inns there. He's called Zichin. He's an outsider who came here not long ago." This place was already destroyed beyond recognition. Naturally, he had to leave and find a new place to stay. Hearing the discussions in the distance, he had a simple understanding of Zichin. The two of them walked to Rat Road Street and found an inn to stay in. Zichin also returned to his residence, and continued to guard this place. Not long after, Wei Luo came. He had a good relationship with Okon. Other than his own ability, his sister was also Okon's wife. "Sir, how is it?" After Wei Luo came in, he asked respectfully. After witnessing Zichen's strength the last time, he became extremely respectful towards Zichin. Zichin said, "There are at least 2 Dharma destroyers." "What?" Wei Luo's expression could not help but change. This was extremely unexpected. Before coming, Okon said that there might be 1 Dharma destroyer among these people. But Zichin said that there were at least 2. Relatively speaking, he was more willing to believe Zichen's words. "Then what should we do?" Wei Luo said worriedly. "Will they target this place?" Zichin said. "From the looks of it, they shouldn't." Wei Luo said again. "Could it be that their goal is still that Pure Land?" Obviously, Wei Luo also knew about that Pure Land. Zichin looked at Wei Luo. "You know about it too?" Wei Luo nodded. "Rumor has it that the Pure Land is connected to a strange world. So many people have come this time. One reason is for the things in the Pure Land. Another reason is to find that strange world." Looking at Zichen's puzzled expression, Wei Luo said again. "Rumor has it that there are unlimited resources in that strange world. As long as you enter it, it will be very easy to advance to Dharma Destroyer." Now, Zichin was only 1 step away from Dharma Destroyer. If there was a chance, naturally, he would go and take a look. After the previous strong show of power, no one dared to cause trouble here anymore. This Pure Land calmed down again. However, Okon, who was in the depths, was not at ease. He was also a Dharma Destroyer. With the support of the Pure Land's power, his battle strength was about between the 2nd and 3rd level of Dharma Destroyer. This kind of battle strength was not weak. Unfortunately, after experiencing the previous incident, Okang was beaten until he was scared. Recently, he had been on tenterhooks. He kept feeling that everyone was plotting against him. A few more days passed. Fewer people came in, and more people went out. Gradually, the news of the newly discovered Pure Land began to spread. Zichin walked out of the inn. On Rat Road Street, he met 2 people. A middle-aged man followed by a servant. The road was very wide, but the other party took the initiative to stop. Zichin also stopped and looked at the other party. "You should go there and take a look. Maybe you'll find something." After saying this, the other party nodded at Zichin with a smile and then left the Pure Land. In fact, Zichin had this idea when he came out this time. However, before that, he had to ensure the safety of this Pure Land. After the other party left, the people who had given Zichin an extraordinary feeling also left one after another. Thus, Zichin went to the depths and found Okon. "The Dharma Destroyers should have left." Okon heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that he really came to recuperate. "According to the agreement, you can choose a street. Even if it's here, it's fine to rebuild one. Rat Road Street is pretty good," Zichin said. "I want to go to that Pure Land to take a look." After saying that, Zichin turned and left. He was obviously not asking for Okon's opinion. Instead, he was telling him about this matter. Help me take care of little Bamboo. If I don't come back, give Rat Road Street to her. Okon watched Zichen leave, and his expression changed several times. Not long after, Zichen suddenly turned around and saw Okon following him. My injuries have recovered. I'll go there and take a look,